Okay, today we have Tony Tyshchuk. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
The last name?
Close as you'll get.
Oh, yeah. So you're currently an owner and operator of multiple kind of storefronts of electronic repair shops,
Yeah.
basically, my understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
Previously, you worked in sales from digging
yeah.
up some information on you.
All kinds of businesses.
Yeah. And you went to CPCC for
Yeah.
1 year, you mentioned.
Yeah.
And
College dropout.
okay. We'll talk about that a little bit. And you were born and raised in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oregon.
Oregon.
I know
Oregon.
there's
I'm surprised you remember. That was years ago. That's cool.
Yeah, and but you came over to Charlotte, and you've been living here for
About
since, basically.
15 years now. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your current state. Like, what are you doing right now? Where are you in life right now? And then we'll kind of backtrack from there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I would put it all together as one. When you own your own business, I think sometimes it kind of becomes your identity. So when someone asks, what are you doing? Or, what are your plans? Or what do you want to do? You almost always resort naturally to, like, your business. Like, this is my life, and this is what I'm doing. But that's because you can't just work 30, 40 hours a week on it. You do have to spend more time on it, especially in the beginning. So it kind of does become your identity. Mm-hmm. I've worked in different small businesses throughout my life, and I worked for some major corporations. And, I'm glad because it kind of helped me right now figure out what I want to do. Last couple of years, right after COVID, I kind of like coasted by, didn't really have any goals, didn't really have any plans. COVID happened, and business was great, and then it took a hard hit, and then my dad passed away, and I just kind of like been floating, kind of no real like goals. But started realizing after getting more involved with our franchise, talking to more franchisees, they kind of encouraged me to like get my stuff together. Like, hey, you're not getting any younger. You need to have investment plans and this and that, and growth plans and a retirement plan. And I was like, oh man, I haven't really thought that through. Mm-hmm. So, right now, I mean, my wife and I are trying to have a baby, so we would love to. We feel like we waited long enough. When we first got married, actually, we were like, well, you remember my story? My wife, so I met her overseas.
No,
so I only physically saw her one time in person before going back to propose.
Okay.
And so we never dated. We didn't spend enough time with each other as we wanted. So we kind of made an agreement. Hey, we'll wait at least 1 year before trying to have a baby. Mm-hmm. And here we are 7 years in. We're like, we kind of overshot that. Let's get to work. So definitely want to grow our family.
Okay.
As far as that side of life goes, we're, not as active in maybe the spiritual side of our life, like in church. We're not as active as we used to be. I take full responsibility for that, but I want to go back into it. It feels like you kind of lose your sense of purpose if you don't have, and maybe it's not even church for some people, but it's like if you're not in a position, or if you're not helping people, if you're not serving, if you're not being selfless, life kind of loses its meaning. Like you don't feel the meaningfulness of it all. I think people need to give, they need to sacrifice in order to get some sort of fulfillment, to get some sort of satisfaction. You can chase money, you can chase this and that, but it's interesting how giving is way more satisfying.
Oh yeah.
And so that's what we're trying to get back into servicing. In fact, how cold it is, I was like, man, I would love to go and, I don't know, do something minimal, buy some thermal blankets and pass them around downtown. Because, I mean, we used to do that back when I was in the youth, before we got married, and it was impactful. People were literally sleeping in 20-degree weather on the sidewalks. And, how they got there and why they're there doesn't really matter to me. It's, they're still humans and they're still suffering. So I'm like, hey, if I can put up a couple bucks and a couple hours of my life to help people, I definitely somewhere I want to kind of balance out that side of my life with business, because the business has just like overtaken my life.
Okay.
Would try to navigate because of all the changes that we have with the wireless space. You got the insurance companies fighting each other. You got all the carriers are like, hey, we'll give you $1,000 credit for your broken phone so you can buy a new $1,500 phone. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of balancing all that all while trying to grow. Mm-hmm. But
that's where you are currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Yeah. So I just wanted to kind of set a reference point of where you are, just to see kind of like how did you get there. So now let's go back in time and to your middle school and high school days.
Oh,
like,
boy.
Who were you like back then?
Class joker, for sure. I mean, if anyone knows me, who didn't see that coming? Class joker for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was good at school. Like I excelled. Even though the class joker, I did skip a lot. But when it came time to testing, I mean, I did very well. I was a reader. You know, back when books were popular, I used to read all the time.
Okay.
And so I think that helped me with my education. And so in middle school, though, around 5th grade to 8th grade, my parents, we moved a few times throughout Portland because they were building a house and went from townhome to a new home. And so I switched schools every year or so. So that was a little bit it sucked, to say the least.
Kind of messed up your friendships or building some kind of relationships with
yeah,
people.
you develop friendships in 1 year in one school, and then, all right, now you're in a completely different school district. You know, it's not that far away, maybe 6-8 miles, but as a kid, I can't travel that. Yeah. And so every year I kind of lost friends. Mm-hmm. So that kind of made it a little bit difficult when I went to high school. I knew a couple people, but that was about it. So I think I lasted about a year into high school, and when I decided to get homeschooled.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember the reason why. I didn't want to go to school. I wanted to be homeschooled. So I was homeschooled, and I finished in a few months. Basically, it was pretty easy when you have Google. Unfortunately,
was that like just your 12th grade or 11th and 12th or something like that? Like, which part were you homeschooled?
So I was actually in the 9th grade, just finishing up the 9th grade, and decided I wanted to be homeschooled. So I was 16 years old, 15, 16.
And you don't remember like why?
Well, actually, now that I said that, part of it was health related. So I would miss a lot of school because I had a really bad abdominal pain. So actually, now that I say that, and so I would miss enough school to the point where the counselors are like, "Hey, you keep missing like this, you're gonna be absent too many times, you won't be able to graduate." And so actually, that's what it was. Yeah. So I told my parents, "Well, I can't go to school," mm-hmm. So homeschool it was, and all of a sudden, a lot of that abdominal pain kind of went away. So I feel like a lot of it was anxiety based.
It's a stress, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you kind of hear sometimes people say their kids complain about something hurting, and then as soon as they, take pressure off of them, any anxiety off them, like, oh, I feel better.
Yeah. So, would you say you are more extroverted or introverted?
Both. I think I'm more extroverted for sure. I do like to be around people, but not large crowds of people.
Okay.
But being alone at the same time has its perks, but definitely extroverted. I don't like being alone often.
They say there's like almost like a little test. Like if you're recharged around people, then you're most likely extroverted, or you are extroverted. And if being around people drains you, then you're more introverted. I don't know if it's real or not.
I've heard of something like that. It makes sense because if you want to unwind, but I mean I don't know. I mean, sometimes unwinding to me is just doing nothing, just alone on a couch, checking the internet out, maybe watching a movie. That's like relax. But I don't do that too often. Usually, when I had more time, we would definitely go out more and just look at the city, do things. But now it's like you work, come home, eat, and pick my feet up and wake up in the morning.
I'm just wondering, like sounds like you're at least leaning towards more extroverted, right?
Yeah.
So being an extrovert, what was it like being homeschooled at that time? Like because extroverts usually want to be around other people, and so I mean everybody does to a certain degree. Like I'm an introvert, but I still want to be around small amount of people, like friends and so on. So
right, just not large groups.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. It didn't impact me negatively. At least I don't think so. I think primarily because I was very involved in our church. Mm-hmm. So we would have, at that time at that church, it was pretty large. So we had 3 services on Sundays. So we'd have morning, afternoon, evening. I would attend the afternoon because that's like where the youth choir led, and there's more English-related stuff. And then I would also attend the evening service. So in between, though, we would all hang out, go to restaurants, go downtown, etc., blow out for a few hours. And then Tuesdays we had youth services. I would attend youth services. And then Friday we had cell groups. So we would bounce around between friends' houses. So I still saw my friends 3 times a week. But on the daily, it was more, at the time, it was internet, so it was really just chatting online, kind of chatting with friends. So I kind of still communicated, but a little bit different.
So it's not like you were homeschooled and you were like isolated in one room all by yourself or whatever. You still had social circles.
No, yeah, definitely. And actually, I'm remembering, I did have one friend of mine who was like close to being a neighbor, like maybe a 15-minute walk. So we would hang out every other, maybe a few days. So overall, I mean, I probably saw my friends more than I didn't throughout the week as far as on a daily basis.
And that was still in Portland, right?
Yeah, that was still in Portland. Okay. Yeah, so it was, I just turned 16. I was homeschooled for about a half a year, and then my parents were like, all right, we're moving. We're like, nice.
So being homeschooled there and then moving here, you were still homeschooled here. So
Yeah.
at least changing locations, it wasn't like before where you changed schools. Like
Yeah.
you're just homeschooled.
It was the
either
same
way.
online stuff. And to be honest, I mean, I kind of didn't really touch the school too much, and it came down here, and then I finished it pretty quickly. I needed to. So actually, at the time, roughly about 6 to 8 months after we moved, my mom fell sick. And at the time, actually, my dad was still in Portland because he couldn't find a job down here. And so he was still working over in Portland, paying the bills. And mom got sick, and that day he quit his job, got on a flight, and came back here. And I was like, I'm 16, maybe 17 years old, going, ooh, we need to pay the mortgage. So I went and got a job, and that's why I knew I had to finish the homeschool quick, because I'm going to have to work a lot of hours to make money, because I was making $5.75 an hour.
Okay, so you kind of, I mean, I don't want to say forced, but like you were forced in a way to grow up pretty quick just because of the circumstances in the house. Like
it was like I was thrust into it, right? I was kind of thrust into adulthood. I didn't really know what adulthood meant, but I definitely knew what bills were, and I got to meet Uncle Sam on the paychecks, and the first time ever, I was like, "What is this?" God blessed us. Like, I had no work experience, I had nothing, but I did, funny enough, work at Cookout, and I just worked as hard as I could because I wanted to. And long story short, minimum wage was $5.75. I was making $9 an hour, and I was one of the only 2 employees in the company they gave overtime to. So I was working like 70-hour weeks because I could, and then so made enough money to buy my first car, because at the time I was walking to work. So I saved up $1,300 to buy a Honda Civic 95 hatchback. Humble beginnings. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So you did go to college 1 year. What was your decision process like of going to college, not going to college?
Man, I still think about it to this day. I mean, so at the time, I didn't know what I wanted to do as far as work. I had no idea career choice, because I kind of was caught in the middle of, I had some friends that were slightly older, and they all kind of chose their degrees. They already knew what they were doing. Some of them started businesses. And so I'm just sitting there going, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know if I want to be a doctor or fireman or electrical. I don't know what I want. And so I just went to, took basic prerequisites, just took the math and English and all that stuff. And then I, maybe about halfway through the first semester, I realized, man, I wouldn't mind going into nursing. Maybe I could go into nursing, and then eventually get my own practice. That'd be cool. That'd be interesting. But then at the end of the first year of college is when my oldest brother started his business, and he needed help. He wanted more free labor from his brothers. So I believed in the project he had going on. So I was like, you know what, we stand to make a good return. I'll go all in. So I quit college, took a gamble. It was a hard decision to make, because it was either that or stick with it and get a steady income. Not have to worry about waking up and figuring out, how do I crush the competition once again.
Yeah. So what was the business, if you don't mind me asking?
So it was very similar to what I'm doing now, but kind of not really. It's hard to explain. But my brother had gone to Africa a couple of times and actually met people who sell rough diamonds, just rough gemstones, diamonds, and things of that nature. And at the time, no one had done anything with them other than industrial uses for saw blades and this and that nature. But he bought them, and then he had the idea of, what if we turned them into jewelry pieces? No one's ever done it. It's unique. It's different. It's not expensive. So it was a completely, for me, I had no experience doing it, but kind of designing jewelry and selling those on eBay, Etsy, and then also just individual listings of jewelry. And then what had happened was he kind of progressed into a retail store. But the scary part was we all kind of agreed that, hey, this is a very competitive market. We need more revenue streams. And so his background when he was a kid, starting from being 10 years old, he would build computers. And so I remember when he was in high school, he would build computers for neighbors, people from church, school, and sell it, and made a lot of money. And so he goes, what if we do a store where we sell jewelry and computers? I laughed as hard as I could. This is the dumbest thing I ever heard of. This makes no sense. But then he's like, no, but they come in for this service or that service. I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense, but we'll see. And it worked for a bit. But, you know, I think it was our first venture together, and as family, sometimes you cross boundaries, and, well, sometimes. You cross boundaries more often than not. And so after a while, we kind of realized it's healthier for us to part ways, just because, you know, we're all brothers. We roughhoused our entire lives, and that kind of went into the business. So we kind of separated, and I went into corporate sales after that.
Okay. And he stayed in the business?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. And right now he's actually I think he's in Portugal right now, or he just came back actually. So he bought a house in Portugal.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it'll be it'd be pretty cool to visit.
Yeah, right on the coast or something out there.
Literally, like I think you can pretty much see the ocean from. So it's like a little hillside, and the house is built on top of the hillside. It's really cool, and you can see the water. Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal.
Wow, nice. So he's definitely moving or has moved over there.
Yeah, he's like bouncing back and forth, getting his paperwork. I think he can only be there for like 6 months at a time, but eventually he'll be there. And then, yeah, I mean, hey, maybe in a couple of years we'll make a Euro trip up there.
Yeah,
fun.
Cool. Okay, so after that, what was it like? You know, from right after high school, after that year of college, and then to where you are now. You mentioned you went through some corporate jobs doing sales. What was that like?
Yeah, so I worked with my brothers for a few years. I definitely learned what not to do in business, and how, you know, we learned a lot. It was fun. So my first job out of that, I went and actually worked. I'm trying to remember the timeline. I worked for Fine Designs. So I'm pretty sure everyone knows Fine Designs, and so I was doing weekend events, and then during the week I was actually calling the directors of sporting events and trying to, you know, convince them to have us come out there and be their t-shirt vendor. Did that for a bit, and then I got an opportunity to work at Hendrick Honda over on South Boulevard, so that was fun. Definitely a different job for sure. The hours were long, and you know, rain or shine, you have to be outside. And I remember when it snowed that year, we actually had a considerable amount of snow, and we're plowing the parking lot. I mean, I learned hard work basically at that point. That's when I was like, I just thought car sales was like, you sit there and someone comes in and you want to buy this? All right, you know, let me run your credit. It's definitely much harder now because of the internet, right? You got a million websites that sell cars, and so that's what made it more difficult. But that taught me to fight, and it taught me, you know, you can't just go and selling and shove things down people's throats. So I did that for a little over a year.
Was it like 100% commission, or was it like base and commission?
Basically, I mean, they called it, I forget what it's called. There's a term for it, but they would essentially give you straight commission. But if you didn't earn anything on your paycheck, then they would pay you minimum wage.
Okay.
But I believe the way it worked is once you got another commission check, they would take that $725 back. I don't know. I don't think anyone
give
ever
you like a minimum wage draw or something.
Yeah, it's a draw. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, and I don't think anyone ever did that bad to ever get to that point, because I mean that dealership was busy. We were selling 700 cars a month, which is pretty impressive. I think most dealerships do less than 200 on average. Luxury maybe even a little bit less, but it makes sense. I mean, you're not going to sell 700 new BMWs.
Yeah. What would you say would be like one secret of the car sales industry?
You can't be emotional. People will annoy you. People will frustrate you. They'll show up 5 minutes before you close and want to go on a test drive, and that's when you just got to kind of pick your battles, be humble. But you know what? It's all about rapport. It's all about who you know and how you know people and how you treat people. The amount of sales I got from people who I treated very well and took care of, they referred people my way. And I saw that amongst all the top salespeople. They would sit there and be like, oh, yeah, no, I got an appointment at 2:30. John's coming back to pick up his fourth Accord. And I would realize it's just how they treat them. Just, you know, treat them honestly. And you can be a sleazy salesman, but you won't actually get far. That's the funny part. You know, the people who try to hide behind numbers and stuff, they didn't do well. But the guys who spent half an hour talking to the customer, listening to their needs, and just kind of treating them like normal humans, you go way further.
Yeah.
And so I just, you know, I like to talk, obviously. So I would talk, and sometimes I'd spend over an hour talking to people before you even did any number digging or any discussion of the vehicle. And by the time we ended the test drive, they're like, great, I'll take it. So
you build a relationship.
Yeah, you have to have a relationship. And that's with any sales job. I think not even sales, just interaction. You know, if you're talking to someone, you're technically in a sales position. I feel that way. Because, for instance, our business, we do cell phone repair and computer repair and all that. when people call the store, sometimes it's not the salesperson that picks up, it's the technician.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to teach my technicians, like, even though you're a technician, when you answer that phone, you're selling. You're selling us. You're selling why should the customer choose me, right? Why should I come to you and do business with you? And, it's like how you present yourself is everything.
Yeah.
It's, even though your position isn't sales, you are selling.
Yeah.
That's the way I view it.
So after that job, what did you do next?
So about a year and a half into Honda, one of my good friends there actually was a very top salesman. I think he was top 5 all the time. Left Honda to go work for a company called Red Ventures.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Red Ventures at all?
I've heard of it. I don't know if is it real estate or is it something else?
They kind of do all things now.
Okay.
But yeah, so they're big, at this point they're a conglomerate.
Mm-hmm.
But the department I worked at was a call center for internet services, AT&T, Verizon, CenturyLink, Frontier, DirecTV. I did exceptionally well there. I loved it. Actually, I kind of liked it, even though it's a call center job. It was kind of like super monotonous. I loved the. They did a really good job with the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, it's a call center. I looked at it as a glorified call center. They did everything they could do to make you not hate your life. They had football. They had pool tables everywhere. A whole bowling alley. They had like 3 cafeterias where you could basically get like a triple cheeseburger with like 10 pieces of bacon with fries and a drink for $4. I mean, you could order as much as you want, tack on as many ingredients as you want, it'd be $4. So it was really, really cool. They did as much as they could to treat you right. Kind of made you forget how bad the job was. But they paid very well.
Okay.
I did that, so did that for about a year and a half as well.
Okay. So that helped you with like customer service and
absolutely.
those
I mean,
skills.
That job in our department in particular was one where when people called, the algorithm knew where they were calling from. That company they were calling for, that service didn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So it routed us to call. We're able to sell whatever is available. Mm-hmm. And so you would field the call, and they're like, "I hate AT&T, blah 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 blah," and like they would go on a rampage for like 10 minutes just complaining about how much they hate AT&T. And I'm looking at the screen, I'm like, "I'm gonna make you buy AT&T because that's the only thing available." And so you would have to adjust. You're talking to someone who hates the company, the service provider you're offering, and if they hang up, it dings you. Let's say you're at the last day of the month and you had a $10,000 commission. If that person hung up on you and you didn't convert that sale, your $10,000 commission would drop. Mm-hmm. So you were like, it taught you to be very, very good at talking to people while, kind of calming them down and convincing them what you have is in their best needs. But that only came from listening. Yeah. Actually, on my podcast yesterday, someone said the key to selling is listening. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, yeah, that's exactly what it was for me. You have to listen to what the person has to say, because otherwise, I don't think you're doing an ethical thing. You can't possibly recommend XYZ if you don't know what they actually need. You don't know all their needs.
Right. When it comes to that, listening and so on, I mean, one example is you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Yeah. So you should listen twice as much as you talk.
Man, if anyone ever needs to hear that, that's me.
But when it comes to sales, definitely like some people just push. It's like, oh, this product has these features. It can do this for you, and they don't know what the customer really needs.
The customer's going, I don't care about any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't make. Yeah, I've had people say like, and that doesn't. How does that affect me?
Right.
And so what I've kind of taught my guys now is, because I've learned in our business, and this is a new thing for me. I never was exposed to this up until a few years ago, but diehard technicians, people who love to take things apart, put them back together, usually, in my experience, hate anything related to sales. They hate the term sales. So what I've done is I've actually learned how to do like a consultative sales approach, but it's easy for them to know. So all it is, let's say a customer broke the phone screen, we fix it, then we're like, hey, you should protect it, a case and or screen protector. So what I do is I just tell them, you don't have to be salesy, you don't have to pitch them anything really. You just pick the 3 options we have. We have a clear one, a privacy one, and then an advanced blue light filter. Just show them, hey, I have these 3 options. Which one would you like? And I said, that's all you have to do. Which one would you like? There's no salesman pitch, anything. What's going to happen is the customer's going to go, well, what's the difference? Now they've asked you to educate them. They've given you permission to sell them. And so I'm like, yeah, and at that point, you just explain the differences. And at that point, 50% of them will buy one. And that's it. I'm like, you don't have to sell. You're just, these are the benefits. And so even people who aren't salespeople can sell just by saying, hey, I have option A, B, C. What do you like?
Right. It's letting them identify the need or learn that they actually have a need, and then based on that need, they can figure out which option they would work best for them.
Yeah, and I heard something years ago. I don't know where it originated from, but I've always tried to live by this. People love to shop, but they hate to be sold.
Yes.
And so I think that takes that out of that, right? If you're just asking them what they want and then they say, tell me the differences, I feel like you come off as much less of a salesperson. You come off as just, hey, I'm just trying to, I have solutions for your problem, and you can choose which one fits your needs best.
Right. And I think the sales industry or sales careers or whatever you want to call them got a bad rep because of that, because people just push things on others. So like if I hear, this person is a salesman and he's going to come and sell me something, like first is like to kind of recoil or like, I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you walk into the mall and you see those ladies like, lotion. I don't want it, you know. And but it's like so in your face, and I get why they do it; they have to.
Yeah.
But in any other environment, like you just can't do that. And that's what whenever any job that I worked at, like salesy, those types of people never made it. You know, they don't get it. They're just too pushy, and you don't have to be pushy. You can be very ethical and very moral about sales. And still make good money.
Yeah. Yeah, so going back to kind of your path of where you are now, how did you end up getting a franchise or starting it or whatever
definitely.
that process
So this is a funny
like?
story, actually. So I was at Red Ventures. I was doing very well. However, there were multiple individuals who kind of gamed the comp plan so much that they made over $40,000 in commission when they should have made like $8,000 in a month.
Wow.
So the company was very unhappy, but they were happy, but unhappy that they had to pay that much commission. And so they sliced the comp plan hard. So I went from earning around $10,000 a month in my commissions to $5,500, and I had to perform better to hit that $5,500. And I was like, this is crazy. And I started feeling a little burnt out, felt too much pressure. And so instead of taking a vacation, some recruiter found my information and gave me a call. And he's like, hey, we hired a lot of people that worked at Red Ventures, and they're doing very well. And the whole grass is greener on the other side. And instead of taking a vacation, I took the call and I went into the interview, and they made it look like the perfect job. And so I quit Red Ventures to go work for a place called Town Square Interactive. It's a digital marketing firm in Uptown Charlotte. Absolutely hated that job. Oh my goodness gracious. That was the worst job I ever had in my life. Not because of the product or service, but my direct manager, operated as a drill sergeant. I kid you not. I mean, literally would talk like a drill sergeant and just in your face, and it just didn't resonate with me. I even asked him, like, look, man, I'm pretty good at what I do. I can do this. I need you to not be in my face. I mean, he would literally like, come on, let's go. And I was like, this is weird. This is a call center. And so I was maybe a couple months in where his attitude kept on getting worse and worse, and I hated the job. And one Sunday after church, I already started getting like stomach pains from the anxiety of having to go to work on Monday. I was like, I tell my wife, I'm like, Lima, I don't want to go to work tomorrow. I hate this job so much. And she's like, well, if you have to quit, you quit and find another job. I was like, yeah, we have no money. I just paid off all of our debt. So I made a lot of money, but I paid off all the stupid debt, all my credit card debt, everything. I was clean, but I had like $800 in the bank account. And Monday morning, I wake up and I'm curled into a ball, feel horrible. My wife grabs my phone. She's like, you're quitting now. Call your boss. And I was like, yeah, I called and I quit. And I was like, what did you do? You can't quit. Like, come on in. We'll talk about it. So I came into the office and we talked for like half an hour, and I just kind of expressed all my concerns. And he's like, if you can't handle it, then maybe this isn't for you. And I was like, wow, like, thanks for affirming that this is the wrong place for me. Thank you. And I quit. But right before I quit, I met the owner of what's my current store, my main store. Name is David. He had an independent repair shop. And I met him through mutual friends over at the Chipotle on 51 next to Starbucks. And they're just eating outside and introduced each other. And I found out this guy's younger than me who has his own business. And I'm just like, man, I'm so jealous. That's so cool. Here I am working a crappy corporate job I hate. This guy has his own business. And so we kind of talked a little bit, and he kind of, explained that business is a little bit slow. And I'm in a digital marketing firm. I said, hey, let me check out your website. Let me see what you're doing. And long story short, he didn't really want to pay for any services, so I kind of gave him some free tips and tricks. And I kind of learned as much as I could from him, and I started calling other repair shops throughout the country as a digital marketer, trying to understand how the successful guys are doing what they're doing. I had no idea about any of this. So a few weeks of calling around, and he's like, man, I think I'm done. I think I'm going to get out of this industry. I think I'm going to sell the store. And I'm just going, I hate my job. And yeah, I'd like to buy yours. So right around that time, that week where I quit, we were talking about his store. And after I quit, I go, hey man, are you serious about selling your store? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to get out. And so I'm like, well, I have $800 to my name. I don't have any money to pay you. Let's work out a payment plan. So I borrowed $1,000 from a friend, paid him with that, actually $2,000, very generous friend, and borrowed $2,000, gave him $2,000. The store had nothing in it. There was like less than $1,000 worth of inventory, and I just watched a YouTube video, watched him do a repair or two, and I was like, I can do this. Thankfully, from my days of helping my brother build computers and stuff like that, I'm decent with my hands, and I was like, oh, shouldn't be too hard, and it wasn't. So I bought the store, and here we are 5 years later.
So the store was already a franchise at that time, or was it independent?
Correct, yeah. It was an independent store.
Okay.
Lime green walls, no branding really. So it was like, I walked in, I was like, ooh, I got my work cut out for me. So before I joined the franchise, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anyone in the industry. And then so I met some people and realized there was Facebook communities for this. And I was like, wow, I should know this. So painted the walls white, added some accessories, figured out, just kind of found random vendors, bought some stuff, put them up, and tried really hard to just make sure that we had what people needed. And that was the biggest thing in this business. It's a same-day service, right? People want everything done now. And so the biggest issue was I have no capital, and I need capital for parts. And so, just try to figure out what was the most popular device, and I would stock those. And then if I had excess money, I would buy a little bit else.
How did you assess the risk of buying that store and seeing success in the future with it and all that?
I didn't. It was a complete gamble. No, but I mean, it was a little bit of a gamble, but it was, during my time with that marketing firm, I did call, I want to say probably 100 repair shops, maybe even more. And I learned a lot of them were doing pretty badly, but there were also dozens who were killing it. I mean, they were, I'm listening, how many customers you guys get a day, this and that. I'm trying to, get some answers from them. And there were people out there doing $2,000, $3,000 a day. I mean, revenue, but substantial. What I didn't know was at that time, that was the quite literal peak of the business, and it was literally already starting to decline. So I went into it thinking, whoa, I can achieve multiple $1,000 days. It's possible if multiple people are doing it. Didn't realize that the industry was already peaked and it's going down. For numerous reasons and reasons beyond my brain. And so I just kind of thought, hey, if it's possible, I can hire my old marketing firm to do my website, and I'll just kind of figure out as I go. It was a gamble, but it was also not too big of a gamble because that store, it was a month-to-month on a lease, so I had a chance of extending my lease. I decided not to for a little bit. My rent was $1,000 a month, so wasn't that high of a risk in that sense versus signing a 5-year lease on a $3,500 unit.
Yeah. How long ago was that? Is that
6
more
years?
years ago?
6 years ago, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so about a little over a year in, I met someone through a mutual Facebook group who was a CBR franchisee, and she helped me a lot. I had a lot of questions, and she was willing to actually give tips and tricks. They had a very successful store out in Tennessee. They had multiple stores, and they were doing at minimum $3,000 a day. And she's like, let me give you some tips and tricks. And then I started realizing that, I started to realize, wow, this is awesome. She was more helpful than other independent stores were, because they were independent stores, you would kind of help someone, kind of give them a tip or trick, but you wouldn't really give the secret sauce, which there is none. But but she was more than willing to just hey, whatever question I had, open book. And so revenue went up, and I was kind of seeing people in the community talk about all the scary things coming with Face ID, serialization, and basically, the concern was you wouldn't be able to replace components in a phone without there being major issues. And so the thought was, well, if I join a franchise, we'll have access to OEM parts, we'll have access to insurance repairs down the road. There was kind of a calculated risk of, I think down the road, I don't think that independent stores will do as well. Someone kind of put it to me like this: you'll always have specialty shops. You kind of have transmission shops for auto body shops. You have these guys who specialize in just European cars. but then you have a million Jiffy Lubes.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing wrong with either one. You know, Jiffy Lubes, you can open 1,000. It's super easy to train people how to, you know, unhook that plug. And
even then they mess it up.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward overall, right? It's not hard. But if you're going to try to teach someone, hey, let's do a transmission swap on, you know, X5s, specialized. And so I had to choose, do I want to be a specialty shop or do I want to go the Jiffy Lube route and have, quote unquote, less headaches? Mm-hmm. It's definitely not less headaches.
But you have at least like a team behind you that's helping you, like all that kind of stuff from corporate, right? From whatever you call them.
For the first few years, no.
Okay.
The franchise was owned by a guy who was smart, very smart gentleman, who bought a flailing franchise that was kind of, you know, I wasn't there at the time, but I heard that, you know, there were issues. He bought it, and, you know, his intent was grow the amount of franchisees we have, expand the footprint. We service every national city, and then sell it to a giant insurance company, which he did about 3 years ago. So we're owned by Assurant. Assurant underwrites T-Mobile repairs. So if anyone in Charlotte, Asheville, or Johnson City, Tennessee have T-Mobile and they have insurance, my stores would be the stores to handle the claims for them.
And you have stores in those 3 cities?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, Asheville and Johnson City, like it's far away, but we make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, one of the questions I was going to ask you is, how do you balance running multiple locations?
Yeah, it's people. I mean, so I have a really good business partner named Pedro. When the opportunities came up to buy the stores in Asheville and Johnson City, I wanted to buy them because I didn't know any better. I was excited about growth, and I was like, hey, you know, at the time in Charlotte, there was you couldn't open more CPRs because there were already CPR stores. So my only choice to grow was to buy their stores or go elsewhere. None of them were willing to sell, so I like, okay, well, Asheville store is far away, but I don't have any experience. And I knew at the time, not my business partner, but who is now Pedro, I knew him because he was a regional manager of ours from corporate, but he also owned his own stores. Met him a couple years in a row at like conferences and stuff like that. And I was thinking, man, I should ask Pedro what steps I should take in order to acquire more stores. And as I'm thinking about it, no lie, this is straight an act from God. As I'm thinking about I should call Pedro, my phone rings, it's him. Mm-hmm. I answered, hey, did you see those stores being sold? How do you feel about those? And he goes, would you want to buy them together? I mean, that was the conversation, like, within 10 seconds. And I'm going, if this isn't a sign from God, I don't know what is. This is obviously, like, that doesn't happen. So we acquired them together, and I had leaned on him a lot because he's a little bit older, but also he'd been in the industry quite a bit longer as well. So he's already had successful stores. Mm-hmm. So he's, you know, kind of held my hand and teaching me how to run multiple stores and how to manage people and then how to create superstars in a sense, you know, create managers who are able to oversee people versus just a manager who's like clock in, make sure people sweep the floor, clock out. Because our idea was, especially with the stores being so far away, is open up maybe a few more stores in that region and have a manager or two rise up and become a regional manager and give them some, you know, sweat equity, give them some skin in the game. Yeah. So, hey, the harder you work, the more you're going to make. That was the goal. So we're getting there.
So, but he's not located in Asheville or Johnson City.
No, so he's actually he's in Middle Georgia.
Okay.
So that's what it's anyone we ever talk to, they're like, how do you make it work? We're like, we just do. Yeah. But yeah, he's in Middle Georgia, so he's got like Warner Robins, which is like next to like a military base, Macon, Dublin, and Columbus. I think Columbus is like right on the border of, I think Mississippi. I'm pretty bad with geography in the southeast. But
did you already have people or managers in those stores, or did you find new people?
They had people. Ended up having to replace all of them. Okay. And we did it way too late. And knowing what I know now, you know, usually people look at it as like a corporate takeover, which it's not. But it's hard to. If people have bad habits, it's very hard to get rid of them. And not even necessarily bad habits, but trying to teach them new things after they've already done things a certain way after, you know, over several years. It was a lot harder than we thought to get them to adjust to our way of doing things. But, you know, I tried to tell them, like, hey, the reason why your stores are being sold is because they were failing because what you guys were doing wasn't working. But, you know, I think everyone's got a sense of pride, so no one likes hearing that. And so it was a constant battle. But we eventually, replaced everyone. We have a really good manager down in both stores are now, but Asheville, we have a guy who's in school for business, and so he wants to own his own business. So we're like, hey, perfect candidate. So we'll build you up, and once you're ready, we'll hopefully open up another store or two there, and have him oversee all the stores.
Yeah. So the other question is, like, how do you recruit talent for those locations? So how did you find the right people?
Yeah. Lots of interviews.
Yeah.
Lots. No, I mean, yeah, we're scouring LinkedIn. My business partner, he spends his days like on LinkedIn trying to find employees for all the stores. That's really been the best thing. But, if I was local, I would definitely, I heard it very well from one of our leadership people in our corporate team. It's like, hey, whenever you're going out to a restaurant, and you have a really good, or anywhere, if you have a really good experience with the employee and like they wow you and that's not normal, talk to them. Ask them what's their game plan. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Do you still see yourself working here? No? How would you like to come work for me? I was really, it's like I haven't had the ability to do that, but I've heard of a lot of people doing that. If you have an amazing waiter or you go sit at the bar and you're just eating food or whatever, and you see the bartender just manage the whole place. He's telling everyone what to do, and you can tell it's not normal. It's like, hey, this guy's or girl like got talent. They're a hard worker. I'd like to take them for myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's pretty much LinkedIn, and
so
it's a reason to go eating.
He was just looking at people's kind of history or
expertise. So we're looking for someone. Ideally, if you have some sort of repair experience, fantastic. If not, I think it's easier to teach how to turn a screwdriver than it is to teach someone how to sell. So I would really prefer we try to find people who have jobs where maybe they're not salespeople, but they're front end people. They're even cashiers, or not even cashiers, but anyone who's on the front end. If you're constantly talking to people, I would love to hire that kind of person.
Yeah, because they interact with customers. They have to interact. So
yeah, the less chance of a social awkward person. And yes, sometimes it's very expensive to teach them how to turn screwdrivers, because now, a few years ago, screens were pretty darn cheap. Now, with all this new technology, on the newest iPhones and newest Samsungs, I pay almost $400 my cost
for the screen.
Wow. And so when they're trying and they break it, it's like, ooh. You go from, hey, we would have made $100 to, oops, we just lost $300-400. It hurts. So you gotta have a very, very good training strategy to not lose all that money.
Yeah, definitely. So, what do you find rewarding about your career, or most rewarding?
About the work?
About your career, or everything you went through, or where you are now with your career?
Most rewarding is, honestly, people that we've hired. Okay, so it's a mix. It's people that we've hired that have actually gone and worked their way up the ladder, maybe in other industries. Pedro and I love to help our staff get to the next level. So if they want to get certifications in IT, so on and so forth, because we know no one's going to stay, or 9 out of 10 are not going to stay more than 2 years. They're going to find something else, and we're okay with that. It makes sense. So, we try to accommodate their needs. So as far as like scheduling, so they can attend class, go to school. If it's a certification that helps with, coding or anything like that, we've actually paid for some employees' certifications. And there's nothing more rewarding than seeing them get a job that pays them extremely well, benefits, PTO. I mean, we offer PTO, but, they get everything. They get 401k matching. And then, 6 months later, they're like, hey, I just bought my first house. And they message us and they're like, it was you guys that helped us. Like, you taught me hard work. You taught me that you can be, you can make good money and still do it ethically. And that's super rewarding to hear people say, hey, I wish all my bosses were like you. And I'm not saying that to beat my own chest. That's honestly mainly Pedro. I learned that from him, like how to treat people with such respect that they don't quit angry. They quit thanking you for the opportunity. It really will bring a tear to your eye. It's just like you impacted someone's life, not even realizing that's what we were doing. And other than that, I mean, it's whenever we can save someone's data off their phone, when they think that all hope is lost, they come in practically in tears saying, hey, my son, or my daughter got this tablet wet or my phone wet. it's not turning on. I never backed up my pictures of my kids for the last 3 years. And when you're successful in retrieving those pictures, I mean, they're bawling, they're crying, they'll hug you because it's every picture they've ever had of their children. And I just always tell people, back up your data. Like, put it somewhere, put it in the cloud, put it in the computer. And I learned that early on because my first year in business, I had a guy, long story short, break down in front of me because we were not able to retrieve the data on his phone because the actual chip that holds all the memory cracked in half. It's impossible to, I mean, theoretically possible, but you'd have to pay 6 figures. And he starts breaking down and crying, saying, every picture of my 2 kids from the last 3 years, and they're 1 and 3 years old, are on that phone. What am I going to tell my wife? And just starts crying. And I'm just sitting there going, what do I do? This is so awkward and it's horrible. And I felt gutted. And so ever since then, I try to tell people, like, every interaction we have, hey, let's instruct my staff, check their storage, check their iCloud, inform them, educate them on how important it is to do that. We don't earn any money off that. We don't charge them for that. But I feel like it's an ethical way of just reminding people, hey, you don't want to lose your prized possessions, your pictures, you know, because it's different than, you know, back when, even when I was a kid, pictures was much different. You know, you couldn't lose them like that. They were in a little roll.
Yeah, the physical ones.
Yeah. So I think people sometimes have had a hard time adapting, understanding you got to take a couple extra steps to make sure that your stuff's safe. Yeah. And it's rewarding, though, when people, you know, when we can save that information. Those 2 things are the most.
So the rewarding thing is something about what you've done for others, basically, like seeing other people succeed or get something back, like you mentioned, with pictures and so on. And that leads to what you mentioned in the beginning, right? Like, where if you're doing something for somebody else, you feel better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, essentially, yeah. I mean, and I think a lot of our employees, it's like a high. I mean, quite literally, we have a Slack chat between all the stores, and when someone has a really big success story, it's like they freak out. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, like, we did it. And there's a sense of euphoria. And I think that's important, especially in today's society. I'm not going to get very political, but everyone's kind of, they want, you know, like we should get everything, and everything should be at, you know, within our grasp. And I don't disagree, but I think there's ways to it. And so everyone, you know, they want a meaningful job. They don't really care about money anymore. It's weird. You know, we've tested it. I've offered 15 an hour to start. I've offered 10. I've offered 20. I've offered aggressive commissions and explaining to people, look, you can make up to 30 with commissions. They don't work any harder. But what they do request in lieu of better pay, you know, company retreats. We want to go out with the boys. We want to go to Topgolf, movies. We want snacks for the store. Like, it's just
like a culture.
It's a culture thing, right? They'd rather enjoy where they work. They'd rather, so in place of more money, they want to have fun. And I'm not against it, but it's like, I try to educate them. Like, hey, that's fine, but long term, you're gonna want that money, because we don't know what's going to happen with UBI. We don't know what's going to happen with automation. Like, you may not have a job 20 years from now. Then what? You know, like, that's a very big reality that most people watching this aren't going to be, unless you own your own business or you're in some sort of position where you can maintain the equipment or the software. It's like, we're going to be replaced. So like, you might as well make the money now while you can. That's my opinion, at least.
Or build the skills that are not replaceable.
At least the skill, exactly right. And even that's hard. I mean, it's funny you say that. I just actually got like in a little Facebook argument yesterday about sales. I'm in a really big sales group where people teach how to do ethical sales by, you know, consultative approach. And someone asked about how they think AI is going to impact sales and phone call sales. People are like, there's no way, yada, 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 that's stupid. You know, people love talking to humans. And I was like, sure they do. But what happens when AI sounds like a human within 5 years? Like, we already have these, you know, AI-generated videos. People they can barely tell they're AI. That's today, barely a year after ChatGPT has been live. People forget it's only been a year. You give it 5 more years, and you have 1,000 other companies making their own version. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if someone gets these bots and listens to every. So let's say I'm a company like Red Ventures. I had 50 million phone calls that we've taken over the years. Plug in the AI to analyze every single call, analyze what they say, why the customer said no, how do they overcome hesitations, tonality, right, versus sound like a robot, but how do you sound like a human? Once they figure that out, it's game over for call centers. I mean, you'll see all the Asian countries lose their jobs, Americans that have call centers, call center jobs, people who work from home. Maybe not all of them will be replaced, but I think over 80%. I think you'll have a majority be replaced.
Like in call centers, you have different levels, right?
Exactly.
Level 1, 2, 3, 4. So like the simpler questions, AI can definitely replace.
Yeah.
Like when you get to the higher ones,
it'll kind of
more
transfer you.
specialized.
Yeah, let me transfer you to someone, but it won't.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I think you won't even know it's an AI. It'll be like, oh yeah, sure, that's not something I do, but let me transfer you to Bill over here, and they have no idea it's a bot.
So let's do this. Have you heard of the app called Pi?
Oh yeah.
So let's ask it a question. Are you going to replace sales reps soon?
I don't think AI like me will replace sales reps anytime soon. While AI can automate certain aspects of sales, such as lead qualification or customer support, it can't replace the human touch. Sales is still very much a human-centered field and requires empathy, rapport building, and personal relationships that AI can't fully replicate. What AI can do is assist sales reps by automating certain repetitive tasks and freeing them up to focus on high-value activities, like building relationships and closing deals. But ultimately, sales is still about personal connections. Yeah. And AI can't replace the unique skills and talents that sales reps bring to the table.
Yeah, not yet.
So I think sales reps are here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future.
For the next year or so.
And the crazy thing is, that's only now. I mean, that is very close to sounding human.
Yeah.
It's very close.
Yeah.
And honestly, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I kind of hope I am, because I don't want people to lose their jobs. People will be like, you want this to happen? No, but if it's inevitable, it's inevitable. But what I'm actually terrified of with AI is how easy they're going to scam grandmas and grandpas, people who are oblivious to this technology. You hear all the time people saying, hey, I got scammed out of $5,000 because I bought a Target gift card and to pay the IRS. Like, oh, yeah. And can you imagine when that AI is going to sound like grandma's little grandson, Timmy? Hey, grandma, I'm in jail or whatever. Like, I need bail money. And it's going to sound real, and grandma's not going to know any better.
Yeah.
Here. I mean, I think we're going to see scams go to a whole new level, and I honestly don't know how they can fix it.
But hopefully, I mean, there's different generations, right? Like, hopefully the generation where AI is going to become at that level will have people who have gone through the Nigerian prince scams and all that kind of stuff. So they should hopefully have some knowledge, like, okay, I need to double check this, or we'll see.
You hope so. Yeah, I mean, for instance, I mean, just while we're on that topic, I had a customer maybe last year. Long story short, got a phone call. This is, everyone knows if your bank or anyone calls you, it's not real. It's usually they're going to communicate through some sort of certified mail. Gets a call. Caller ID says Truist, his bank. Yeah. So long story short, someone spoofed the number, made it look like their number is the official bank.
Wow.
He got a little sketchy. He's like, I was feeling a little uneasy. I was always told banks don't call you, yada yada. So he's like, I'm a little concerned. And so what happened is that the scammer was able to get his username out of him. At least he said the username. He's, I don't feel comfortable giving my password, this or that. And she's like, well, tell you what, mister, I'll block your account. I'll lock it so no one can access it. No one's able to log in, so it's safe. And she'd go ahead and, try to log in. You see what I mean? And so what she did was she found out his username and just put in the wrong password enough times to actually block the account. Yeah. And he's like, oh, yeah, it is locked. She's like, see, you're not at risk anymore. I locked your account. No one can touch your money. And he said, I got to let my guard down. Scammed him for like $16,000 to wire the money out of his account.
Wow.
Yeah. But it's like a lesson learned. Like, just no. Go, go to the branch.
you gotta like know your surroundings, like whether it's virtual or physical or whatever, and then know what's going on around you.
Yeah, the world's getting a little bit harder to navigate. I think you just have to be more intentional.
Yeah.
And I think it's that / we've been less intentional with electronics, with social media. You kind of have your mind everywhere, right? I mean, most people in this country have Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. They're bombarded with lies from every corner of their pocket. Every website, every app, there's lies and there's exaggerations and there's opinions. And I feel like it's hard for people to be intentional and to be focused on life, focused on what they're doing, because there's so many distractions. There's so many things pulling at you. And you have to kind of narrow your eyesight. You got to narrow your vision and just like, hey, I'm not it's just not worth looking at all that.
Right. You got to be mindful, or like in that moment, you got to see what's going on, not be like distracted.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you make bad decisions. What advice would you give someone who's just starting out in business?
Ooh. Well, I mean, it definitely depends on the type of business. But so I was telling you before we started, so I'm starting up 2 different ventures. So one of them is actually this Repair Pivot, which is kind of changed what we do, but we're essentially like a consulting firm for other repair shops. But we offer tools that help them run their business a little easier, software and kind of track things and trainings for their staff, because I'm a salesman, and at Red Ventures I became a sales trainer and I wrote scripts. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like, hey, I can help you, give your guys an idea of what to say, some level of scripting. So we kind of do a lot of things, and so we're doing that. And I have a fantastic business partner who is currently living in Norway, working. These remote jobs are ridiculous, man. I love it. It's awesome. He's living in Norway, but he lives in America primarily. But
is he from U.S. or from Norway?
Sorry?
Is he from U.S. or from Norway?
From the U.S., yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
So he met a girl there and got engaged, and now so they're going to get married, and so he's only there for like I think 6 months at a time with the visa.
Okay.
But he's working on the business like 20 hours a day, and then we have started a hotshot company where we're buying Sprinter vans, and I'm going to be doing deliveries all over the country, and so multiple businesses. So depending on what kind of business, how you start is different, but I think the number one thing is don't have an ego. Do not be prideful. Do not be scared of asking questions. I asked as many questions as I could. When I first joined CPR, I was a horrible store. We were doing not even $10,000 a month in revenue. Mm-hmm. And they would email leaderboards, top 25 stores, their revenue, their numbers. And I was like, holy cow, these guys are doing 5 to 20 times more than me. How? And so I made it my goal to find out who the owners were, and I talked to them and asked as many questions as I could about anything and everything, to the point where, I'm pretty sure I annoyed them. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I don't care. This is my livelihood. I have questions. And so I think asking questions, asking people especially people who have started businesses, hey, what do you think? Right? Kind of bounce ideas off of them. I think that's a huge thing. I don't think you need to pay for a mentor, especially when you're starting. I think you got to learn some lessons. You have to fail a few times, maybe more, because failure really humbles you. It really lets you know, hey, as much as you want to plan for success, let's say it's construction. Hey, it's going to cost me $73,000. Sure. Yeah, double it, and you're probably still going to be short. And you have to learn that the hard way sometimes. You think, hey, if I do X, Y, Z, well, I'll achieve this by X date. You probably won't, and that's okay. I think you have to fail.
Well, in the beginning, like your example of replacing the screen, in the beginning, if you're not quite sure how to do something, you will break it.
Yeah,
and
it takes way
making
longer.
that 100, it's costing you 300. And if you stack those failures,
yeah, you have to. Someone said, again, I can't remember who said this. I think it was from a movie even, but it said if you're going to fail, fail fast.
Yeah.
I just can't remember who said it. But yeah, like fail fast, fail frequently. Like just get it out of your system and learn, as long as you learn from it. Right. And I think people will get discouraged. They'll be like, oh, I tried it for 6 months, or I tried it for a year. I mean, if you haven't hit year 3, you probably still haven't. You still have room to grow. You haven't figured it out. Usually, most people will figure it out. It takes years to figure out what works and what doesn't work. So you gotta just surround yourself with people though who have started businesses and ask any and all questions.
Mm-hmm. So how do you stay motivated?
I think it's clinging to the dream, right? It's the dream of, the journey's fun. Sometimes the journey sucks. Sometimes the journey is very painful. And, to get past that painfulness, to get past that this sucks moment, is to remember what your goal is. Like why did you start? And if you're going to start, ideally you want to have realistic goals on paper, and then have some crazy goals, like whatever it is, right? Whether it's massive amounts of money, or whether it's, just whatever your goals are, have realistic ones, and then double it and put that as a goal too. And so when you're down, you look at your goals and be like, hey, I still want to achieve that. I still can. And so I try to remind myself, everyone's failed. I love listening to Joe Rogan podcasts, because he talks to anyone and everyone, and people oftentimes share their failures. You look at Elon Musk, literally was less than 24 hours from bankruptcy when filing when launching the Model 3. Mm-hmm. Like, all of his money on the line. He was all in, all his cash, everything. He was already worth hundreds of millions, actually billions. He didn't have to. He could have just retired, but he risked all of it until the last second. And you look at Walt Disney. Walt Disney failed so many times. People said, no one ever listened to you. No one ever, that's stupid. Mickey Mouse, that's stupid. And he got shut down time and time again. And then now, now maybe Disney's not the great example now, but like it grew into an empire.
Yeah.
After failed attempts. McDonald's, same thing. And so I think it's, I try to remind myself, if these people can do it, why can't I? It's, it's effort, it's grit. And you're never going to, I just try to remind myself every day, like you're never going to get to where you want to go by working a 40-hour week, taking hour-long breaks, hour lunches, and, being lazy. Like, no, you have to grind. You have to work hard. You have to be efficient. Make use of your time. So that way what I learned, I wish I learned earlier, like years ago, work as hard as you can during your work hours, as fast as you can, be as efficient as you can, so you can go home to your wife, you can go home to your spouse, and have that time. Because I would pull so many long days. I would come home, and it's like 30 minutes later, I'm in bed sleeping, and we didn't have time, and I didn't want that. And I was like, okay, so how do I balance it out? Work harder, work faster, and that'll give me time to spend with her.
How do you define success or a successful person? What's a successful person, or what is success?
That's a tough question. I've given that some thought over the years, actually. I think everyone's level of success is going to be different for sure. I think a lot of people's monetary, it's, hell yeah, I'm making, for someone it's $50,000 a year. For someone it's, $500,000. So for me personally, just because of what I've been exposed to, my understanding of success is you've developed something where if you don't go into work that day, you're still making a good living. Your bills are still paid, your company's operating, your employees are covered, they're paid well. They're not picking up side jobs, they're not working overtime to pay their bills, they're not filing for government assistance. If my employees are financially well off, to me, that's a success. Of course, I want to make a lot of money too. And so I think, though, one thing that my business partner, Pedro, taught me is, it's all a circle. You have to have happy customers or happy employees in order to have happy customers. Because if customers walk into your store and your employee is negative, down, upset, I'm broke, I'm this, I'm that, it's going to rub off on the customers. Not a great experience, and they may not come back. But if the employees live in the dream, or they're having fun, they're not miserable, and they're lively and bubbly, that's going to rub off on the customer. And hopefully we do a good job, treat the customer right, they pay us, and that means the company's happy because the company made money, and now I can pay the employee well. And it's just it's a never-ending circle of that. You have to treat them well. And so to me, that's probably the biggest one. Other than that, if I were to say financially, it's if it's less than six figures at this point, it's not successful. But I also kind of don't like saying that either, because again, it depends on where you live, right? Like if I live in Uptown Charlotte, $100,000 is not anything. But if I go to Monroe, $100,000, you're pretty well off. But I think ultimately it's, can my staff live a good life? And, am I able to do that with, provide them a good work-life balance while maintaining one myself? If I can achieve that one day. Right now, I don't have a good work-life balance. I'm a workaholic. But, I see it and I'm working on it. And I think it's good to recognize that. If you don't recognize that you are working too many hours, you've been doing it for too long.
So you mentioned earlier about like working fast or hard while you're at work so you can come back home. So you feel like you still don't have that balance right now?
No, I think I bit off more than I could chew, so I'm just multitasking too much.
Okay. And
so I'm working, but because of how many tasks I have to do in the day, it'll be 6, 7, 8 p.m. I'm like, I could use a few more hours of work, but I'm going home.
Yeah. Just because of you're spreading yourself a little bit too thin.
Yeah. There's a lot of, let's say I'll repair something because someone called out. So I'm repairing while helping, maintain inventory. And then I got a manager from another store calling me, asking me a question that's something that's not covered in our employee handbook. There's a weird situation that happened, and so they need to know. And then I got, clients from Repair Pivot asking me questions. So it'll happen like in a 5-minute span. I got 7 people asking me questions. I'm just like, I need to figure out how to prioritize this.
Yeah. This episode is sponsored by Valverax. Valverax is a full home improvement company located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and servicing the surrounding areas. They offer services ranging from porch enclosures to additions to decks, patios, windows, roofing, siding, all the way to building a new home. If you're looking for any home improvement needs that you have around your house and you're looking to improve your home, give them a call. Number is 980-477-1783, or you can email them at office@valverax.com. And Valverax is spelled Valverax. You can look them up online. Again, give them a call at 980-477-1783. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to a different topic.
Hey, there we go.
Financials or finances. What's your approach to financial planning and goal setting?
Oof. It hasn't been great over the years. Kind of. I mean, it's basically try to live on as little as possible. You know, I don't really have many things, if that makes sense. You know, I don't have like 20 pairs of jeans and 50 pairs of shirts. We try to cook as much as possible at home. So as much as I like to save, I don't do it to our detriment, to where, like, you know, we're cold, we don't have heat, and, you know, we can't shower, and it's just like, hey, if we're looking at, you know, something that we don't need, we look at it, we like it, and we're like, okay, let's think it through. We'll use it once, we'll use it twice. Do we see ourselves using this 50 times? No, put it back. We don't need it, because I'm always concerned of, not concerned, really, just in the back of my mind, I think, God forbid something happens to me where I can't make money. I get injured, or whatever happens, and I'm not able to produce as much as I was able to produce. Because that, you know, I've seen it happen. And when we moved to Charlotte, we moved right after the economy crashed. So it was like the perfect storm. My parents had just blown up their construction business to the biggest it was, had multiple homes being built, nice luxury homes, and market crashed, and overnight, oops, there goes all the money. There goes everything. And, you know, it's not, they didn't really do anything wrong. It was bad timing. Yeah. And so that taught me from an early age, like, you can do everything right. You can plan as much as you want, but God can easily just change things to where it's like, well, that's your plan, but it wasn't mine. And so even though it's kind of contradictory to what I'm saying about saving, I don't want to earn $100 and spend $100. I want to spend the least amount we need to in order to have a good life. And then the rest of it, you know, I've done a bad job with investing into, like, a traditional portfolio. So primarily invest back into the business. I do have some stocks, a little bit of crypto, and then putting money into, like, a little savings account, earning, I think it was, like, pretty good, like 4%, 5% a year. Kind of almost hedges against inflation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But we try to be frugal. I mean, we try to, you know, yeah.
So do you find yourself balancing kind of and prioritizing short-term versus long-term financial goals?
Not in the best way possible.
Mm-hmm.
Just being honest. Yeah. I mean, cause I've been getting better at it. So, because for the longest time in this business, I had no money. I started the business with no money. And so I was just, like, super focused on making sure I had enough money to buy parts for the next day. And hopefully by the end of the month, I'd have enough money to also be able to pay my rent. And so I just was, like, super short-term thinking, daily thinking. Eventually grew into, like, weekly, now monthly, because I used to look at the snapshot of, like, one day. And I would go, oh my gosh, we had a $0 revenue day. And it would just mentally destroy me. And then I started looking at it bi-weekly. Now I look at it monthly. And then now I'm even actually like, oh, okay, so this month kind of sucked. But how was it to prior years? And so that's also allowed me to kind of think longer term. Like, okay, hey, look, I'm fine. We're making enough money. We can take X amount and put it in a longer term investment. I don't do as much as I should. It's mainly just because right now our business is, like, super cash intensive. Mm-hmm. Since we launched insurance repairs for T-Mobile, we have to use, like, genuine Apple and Samsung parts that are very expensive. So I kind of put a little bit of a pause on long-term investing just so I can facilitate all these claims.
Okay. How do you stay informed and up to date on financial trends and news, like, related to, I don't know, stocks or whatever else, if you do?
Yeah. I read a lot. I mean, I read various sources. I try not to give any one person too much of my ear, so to speak. 'Cause everyone's biased and everyone, has their own understanding. So I kind of listen to a multitude of people who are stock experts, so to speak. But really, I kind of lean on the people in my network, honestly. The people in the CPR network, there's a lot of people there that are way, way smarter than me, including my business partner. He's shared his tips and tricks and ideas of investments. Other guys that have multiple stores who are younger than me, who already have their dream house and, live on a lake and talking about how they have their, all their retirement accounts already like running and they're being funded. And so I'm like, tell me more. So, and that kind of goes back into the whole, if you're starting out your business, what do you do? Same thing. You ask questions. I think you never stop learning, right? You always, whether you're starting your business and whether you're finally at the point where, hey, you can start setting some aside for retirement or for future investments, you shouldn't really lean on your own understanding, because unless you literally got an education, in that, you really should lean on people who have done better than you, who, or at least, you can. It looks like they're doing better than you, because sometimes though people can fake it, right? You can tell. Like someone said very well, like, hey, if you go to a house in Valentine, fancy, big house, Mercedes, BMW, and then if you go upstairs, there's nothing there. It's empty. They afford it. They could afford to decorate the downstairs where guests are, but then you go upstairs and there's not even a bed. It's just a mattress on the floor.
I think there's a term for that, like house poor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so you got to also be careful who you talk to, right? You got to look at, do they practice what they preach? When you go out to talk to them, are they ordering a $10 cup of coffee? Or, because if they are, it's not the most financially sound thing to do. So it's like small things to kind of pick up on who that person is. Yeah. And sometimes you may not trust the right person, but you gotta. I think that's also why I always try to talk to multiple people before I make a decision. Different people who maybe don't even know each other, just try to get their perspectives. And once you have multiple people kind of give you a similar answer that just feels right, and then you do some more research online and that makes sense, it requires effort.
Yeah. What are the most important things that you've learned about money and wealth management?
What I wish I learned earlier is this. I learned this. This is probably the most important thing for me, is the power of compounded interest. I can't believe that was never taught in high school or even my 1 year in college. No one ever talked about that. We're going to teach you how to do mathematics. We're going to teach you arithmetic. We're going to teach you how to do division. We're going to teach you algebra and this and that. But how to utilize those numbers, how to understand money, no. And it always blew my mind. I was like, man, how much better off we would be if you're 17, 18 years old and you're taught, hey, if you put $200 aside every month at 18, by the time you're 65, you're going to be a multimillionaire. Like, if I knew that at 18, oh my goodness. So I learned that way too late. So now, we have some money being compounded, but like a decade late. And so, if you start, I saw something like if you start at 18 versus 25, it's like a difference of almost $1 million by the time you retire. Yeah. Just because of that 7-8 years. Just wild.
Yeah.
So I wish I learned the power of compound.
So that's good advice for young people out there.
Yeah, 100%, right? Because so the way I thought about it was, well, I'm going to go all in on my business. I'm going to invest 100% of my dollars into my business, because I picked that up from my oldest brothers. You made $100, put it back into inventory. Not realizing though, you need to set some aside for long term, whether it's retirement or an emergency fund, and let it build, because what can happen to a lot of businesses is you never have enough capital. You're always investing into the business, which is fine. A lot of businesses don't like that, but if you don't have reserves, it can really hurt.
Yeah. You mentioned like continuous learning. So what is that like for you? Like, how do you continuously learn, or what methods you use?
Yeah, primarily, at this point right now, primarily podcasts. When I drive to Asheville and Johnson City, it's a several-hour drive, so I'll turn on some podcasts. I'll seek out, like, so if I go, let's say I listen to a Joe Rogan podcast, sometimes I'll listen to a Christian podcast and try to get like a renewed mindset on certain topics. But oftentimes it'll be, I'll go on Joe Rogan's podcast and I'll look for people who have a literary background or business background. They've developed a $1 billion company or $100 million company, and purposefully seeking out people like that. And then, hearing how they talk about business, about how they treat people, you definitely find common denominators. So that's probably been the biggest influence. right now, my biggest influence on money is probably Alex Ramosi. That guy is just, I mean, by the time he was my age, like a year ago, he was already worth, I think, over 30 million or over the 100 million. Insane amount of money. I mean, and how he did it was nothing special. It's just, it was special in a sense of, but like, he just treated people right. He heard they have a problem, he presented solutions. And so he has a book called The $100 Million Leads. It's a second book. And he's given away so much free content, tips and tricks on, you know, not just saving, but like, you know, showing the difference. Okay, if you save, you can save X, Y, Z, and this will, you know, make you this much money. But, you know, sometimes like, you just have to earn more. You have to increase your earning capacity.
Yeah.
Like there was one thing he said that kind of, you know, it resonated with me a lot. He said that if you had, so he was kind of challenging the status quo, like people like Dave Ramsey, people who say invest every dollar long term. He kind of said, I think it can be more balanced than that. Mm-hmm. He said, let's say you had $1,000 and you want to invest it. He's like, okay, you invest it, and you know what? Like that $1,000 at the end of the year, what's it turn into? You know, 1,040. You know, he's like, you didn't really make much. Long term, you will. Like, but in the meantime, he's like, let's say you took that 1,000 and you put it toward, like, he's at phlebotomy. Let's say some sort of a medical course. Right? You take a course, a certificate that doesn't take too long. It's a couple of months maybe. Take that money into that, and that increases your earning capacity. Let's say you get an additional $5 to $10 an hour in your pay. You'll get a much larger return on that 1,000 in the first year than if you were to put it in investment. Mm-hmm. So with that extra $10 an hour, you can earn that extra 1,000 really fast and put it in that long term. All the meanwhile, you increased your earning capacity. That's increased your ability to invest more and more and more. So he preached a lot about educating yourself. You know, first and foremost, when people say, I want to invest, he's like, yeah, invest in your knowledge, invest in what you know, in skill sets. Or like you mentioned, right? Like people need skill sets. It's like you invest in it. That is the number one ROI you'll have on your life. And so it's just absorbing everything from everyone.
Yeah, so it's looking at both short term and long term.
Yeah, you got
where you can invest short term that will benefit you in the short, midterm, and then also invest in long term. So do both. It's not like don't just do one or the other.
Yeah, and the hard part though is, you know, there are a million influencers. Everybody's rich and everybody knows how to get rich, and and so, you know, you got to kind of figure out how to filter it out. Who do I not listen to, right? And there's a lot of shysters out there. There's a lot of scammers. You know, a lot of people say, yeah, man, I read 2 books a day and that's why I'm a millionaire. It's like, what does that even mean? You know, but these guys are living in 20,000 square foot mansions. They have 20 Ferraris because they scammed enough people. And so you kind of have to figure out who's real. Yeah. And I've learned the people who are the realest are the ones who will give out information for free, like real, tangible stuff. Like Alex said, increase your earning capacity. And he breaks down the math as to why. People like that, if they're willing to give you free information, I think, you know, you can trust them. And that's a strategy on their end. It's reciprocation, right? Hey, you're going to feel bad with how much information I'm going to give you. You're going to feel like a jerk if you don't give me money. And it's a perfect strategy. It worked brilliantly for him.
Yeah. So how do you manage information overload and still maintain focus on the intellectual pursuits or like learning?
There's what I do and there's what I should do. So what I should do is I should write everything down and then prioritize them, make several different priority lists. I have a bad habit of not doing that, so it's kind of all in my brain, and I'll wake up and like freak out. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do. But then my wife's like, write down what you need to do for the day. And I'm like, oh, I only have 3 of these tasks to complete today. I can complete the rest later this week. Okay, cool. But it's primarily it's just trying to prioritize urgency levels, right? Mm-hmm. What's going to impact my life the most now? What's going to help me? Almost like it's like a delegation kind of thing. So from my own perspective, and maybe someone can, they'll utilize this in their own situation. For us, with let's say delegation, when we're opening up any of the newer phones, you have to heat them up because the adhesive that holds them together is heat sensitive. So you got to get it real hot so you can slice the tape. But that takes anywhere sometimes from like 2 to 5 minutes. So you put on a heat mat. The worst thing you can do is sit there and wait. You're like, I'm just going to wait for it to warm up. Like, there are other things to do. And so what I try to teach my staff is while that's warming up, put a timer on it, take care of the other tasks. There's things to do, whether it's take out the trash or whether it's, answer a phone call, answer email, check inventory, prep the new part. there's things you can do to make to fill in that few minutes, because you're going to have to do it eventually. And so I try to use that same concept in everything else in my life. Like, what can I do now that will speed up the process of other tasks that I need to fulfill, and or can kind of run in the background. Kind of like, when you're going to update your computer and you got to wait like 8 hours. You're not going to sit there and stare at the computer like, all right, what else can I do, right? So like, should I do the update now or do it tonight? So maybe you should do the update at night so you can use the computer during the day. But now you're kind of multitasking. So kind of like just trying to figure out how should I prioritize what, and what can impact me the most now, and then what can kind of work in the background, so to speak.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, I don't practice what I preach there as much as I should, but it's a work in progress.
Yeah, I mean, we're all living and learning and trying to apply things.
Yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful parts about business, right? Where you look at today's world of social media, everyone's got it figured out, and everyone's driving Lambos, and everyone lives in Miami or a beach house in LA, and everyone's rich, and yada, yada, yada. It's not true. And even if those people are, great, good for them, but, you need to just figure out what works for you. And, these people make it seem like they wake up and, they eat and they go to a meeting and they go home and it's like, no,
Well, those are highlight reels, right?
Exactly.
Like they show the best parts of their lives. Depending on the motive behind it is different for each person. Yeah. But when we're looking at it, we're only seeing the best. We're not seeing the down times, the bad times, the negative things going on in their lives. So there is no perfect person that's like, yeah, I made it and my life was perfect all the way through and that kind of thing. Like people who truly have made it, they failed a ton to make there.
So much. Absolutely. And I think people, especially younger people, are having a hard time discerning reality with, it's like, which of these people pretending to have this perfect life, who knows if that moment is even real, And I try to, with Repair Pivot, whether it's our clients or my employees or my own life, I try to remind myself and everyone, like, it's okay to fail. It's in fact, I kind of want you to be open about it, talk about it. That's why I have no problem saying, yeah, I don't really practice what I preach 100%, because someone needs to hear that. Someone, because it could be everything else they hear is the opposite. I wake up at 4:30 a.m. and by the time it's 6 o'clock, I already ran 20 miles. It's like these people are setting these crazy false expectations, and it makes you feel like garbage. If you sit on Instagram long enough, you will want to blow your head off. I mean, all you see is, like you said, highlight reel. Yeah. Oh, here we are in the mountains of Switzerland, and now we're in Paris, and look at this, this my biggest check ever in my life, and I got this new car, and my wife and I, we're doing this and doing that, and I'm like, real or not, that's a tiny percentage of their life. What about the rest of the monotonous of their life? What about the failures at work? What about just the boring parts? What about the times where they didn't make a sale for a week?
Right. And those things nobody really wants to see, right?
Yeah.
We as consumers of information and pictures and videos, we want to see like the nice things. We don't want to see somebody trying to sell and not making a sale.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also for the people who do fail, who don't want to share, like I've shared my failures more than I probably haven't. I think what people need to realize is, or the people that don't share their failures are maybe sometimes scared of being judged. And it's like, for what though? Who cares? That's the way I look at it. I'm like, and is it going to impact my life? Does this person's opinion, are they going to, unless they're like a client who would literally like, cancel me and I'm not going to make any money. But if it's just someone I know, okay, I just, I don't understand what they're scared of.
It could be not that they're fearing anything, but more like they don't want to impose on somebody else. Like,
true. Like,
okay, this was a horrible event for me, and you should feel sorry for me or something. Like they don't want people.
Yeah,
to.
True. Yeah, I think the way I look at it is kind of like a, hey, I went through this. You don't have to.
Right.
Here's how you can possibly avoid it. One of my favorite quotes of all time is like a smart man learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man will learn from the mistakes of others. Mm-hmm. And so I try really hard to try to be wise, to try to, ask people questions. And, if I'm going to go through, let's say, a new area, new territory in my business or in my life in general, I'll try to ask people who have already been there, hey, what are your thoughts on this? Right? Like same thing like when we were getting married, I started asking a bunch of married people. people who've been married for 30 years, 40 years, 10 years, 5 years. What are your thoughts on marriage? How do how did you guys figure it out? How do you not kill each other? How do you still have passion? And so, the same thing, I asked as many questions as possible, and I learned that basically as the man, just shut up, do what she says. And, no, but, it's like, it's give and take, right? And you have to learn. But, I wouldn't want to learn that firsthand. I wanted to learn from other people. I don't want to upset her, So I tried to avoid that as much as possible. It doesn't work. You're still going to make stupid mistakes. But, did you learn from them? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, just, you kind of brought
I don't want
it
to
up.
get you in trouble.
No. I'm in trouble no matter what, with whatever or not.
Sounds about right.
But no. What I mean is, just on the quick topic of relationships with wives, what I realize is wives usually want husbands to lead. So the getting in trouble or whatever, I think that kind of portrays the wrong intent behind things or behind the relationship.
I'd agree.
So it's more like when we don't lead or when we don't lead properly, that's when we get in trouble.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. I mean, most, again, in today's society, traditional women at this point want that. Yeah, they want a man to provide, to keep them safe, give them a place to raise a family. That's what they want. And yeah, if a man doesn't fulfill his side of the bargain, and vice versa, right? If you come home to a dirty house, unclean, no food's cooked, kids haven't eaten, as a husband, you got a right to be angry. Like, what have you done all day? But, if you come home and it's clean, laundry's done, dinner, it's like, dude, you better shut up and do what she says because she busted her butt all day long. So did you, but it's harder with screaming kids. You don't get a break, right? At work, you can take a lunch, mentally clean yourself off. You can take a break. You can take a smoke break, which, take 15 minutes to go outside and, like, smoke, right? Because just stand around and do nothing. Because why not? Like, if you take 5-10 minutes, do it. A mom can't, or a stay-at-home dad can't really take that time away once the kids have no longer have nap time. It's like, it's a 24/7 job. And so I think sometimes, I've seen some guys go, hey, I worked hard all day. The least you can do. It's like, dude, you shut up. She worked hard too. You both worked hard. And so my wife and I have come, we don't have kids yet, but we've tried very hard to have a balanced responsibilities, right? It's like we both work, we both come home, and it's like, hey, there's things need to get done. Sometimes she'll do more, most of the time she'll do more, and sometimes I'll do more, but not as often, unfortunately. But it's also because she understands when I'm at work. I mean, I don't stop working. It's nonstop. I'm fried by the time I get home. My brain's just like. So sometimes, she'll definitely do a lot more than I do, and she understands. Like, we came to a mutual understanding that it's not going to be a 50-50. It's going to be 100 and sometimes 80. And
the goal should be 100, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Not
exactly.
50,
And sometimes 120.
Yeah. So what role does family play in your personal and professional life?
Could you actually expand on that a little more? Because I'm just trying to...
Like, your view of family, your... what you think of, like, the roles within the family, and how does that play on in your personal life, and how does that impact your professional life?
Yeah, I mean, personally, it's finding a balance. Like I said, it really, because I hate the saying happy wife, happy life. I hate it. It should be happy spouse, happy house. And it's not one-sided. It shouldn't be. And I think too often times it is. The people that I've spoken to who have had the most successful relationships are the ones that all said, hey, we set the record straight up front, expectations up front. And whenever we deviate, we talk about it. But it's like understanding sometimes it's give and pull. And so I try to be very intentional with that. But that also falls into the professional life, because I work with my wife. We didn't always used to work together, but so it can be difficult professionally because I'm like, hey, I'm your boss. Never say that to your wife, by the way. It doesn't work. But, so we kind of set boundaries. But I think the nice part about being a family business and being family driven is you're kind of more motivated to work harder, because it's like, hey, first of all, she's watching. For me, it's like she's there. I don't want her to ever think I'm slacking. and I don't want to slack. I want to provide for her. I want to provide for my staff, and it's really like it's kind of like a goal, right? It's like kind of like an itch in the back of your brain, something that's kind of keeping you going, if that makes sense. It's just like it's a motivation to do things right, and it kind of, I kind of do the whole try to treat our customers and our staff, and I tell my staff, treat the customers as if you were doing something for your own grandma. So it's like a family aspect. Like no matter what, like just try to treat them well, and if that answers your question, I think. But
yeah, I mean, everybody has their different
right.
version
That's
of
what I
it.
think. It's a more of a personal. It's different with how for everyone else.
So how do you handle conflicts within family or within kind of personal relationships?
Oof. This isn't live, right? No.
Not live, but it's recorded.
We'll just cut this out. It's fine. No, so like it's not easy. I think it comes down to clear expectations. Mm-hmm. So in my business, with my business partners, we clearly said these are our responsibilities. This is what we expect of each other. Sometimes we fall short. We'll balance each other out. That's fine. Same thing with marriage. When we were getting married, we had a conversation about our expectations as far as participating in church. What are our views on that? What are our views on outreach? Views on what our daily life looks like? Are we going to stay home all the time? Are we going to go out occasionally? What do we, what do we want from each other? What do we expect from each other? And so that I think has helped eliminate some of the arguments over the years. But whenever there are arguments, for the longest time I hated it. But my wife would always just take a step away. She would walk out of the room, no yelling, but she would just be like, "I'm going to go over there." I hated that. It always like, no, we're going to resolve this conflict now. You don't walk away. We're going to talk this through. Not realizing that works for me, doesn't work for her. She needed 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe half an hour, but it's usually 5-10 minutes to just breathe and not say anything stupid to each other. And so we kind of early on were like, hey, if we're angry, just take a breath, walk away, because, even though they're just words, they can haunt you. You can say the wrong thing. My parents taught me that a long time ago. Like, never call your wife or your significant other, never call them a bad word. Never call them anything. Never degrade them. Because the next time you have an argument, they're going to bring that up. They're going to remember that. And it compounds. And then 20 years later, you break into a fight where you always say this about me, da-da-da-da-da. And now it's 20 years of negatives being thrown at you. So we try very hard to, when we're angry at each other, we try not to say much. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me. I want to call out the issue. Like, I see you did this. Why did you do it that way? Da-da-da-da. And she's like, are you kidding me right now? Like,
but you talk about it later, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so once we calm down, sometimes it's half an hour, sometimes it's longer. Sometimes it's been a whole day, and we're like, hey, are we good? Let's talk. Yeah. I think only once did we ever have an argument where I fell asleep and we didn't resolve it that night. I blame the fact that I was tired. We didn't go to sleep angry intentionally. I just passed out. I woke up. I was like, oh, shoot. Like, that's the first time ever. And but at that point, we were good. It's just I didn't like the feeling of going to bed and not having have resolved it verbally. But yeah, so we usually wait until we're calm, and then we'll talk about it, and then have the same argument the next day.
Yeah. Have you heard of the book called Crucial Conversations?
Can't say I have.
I would definitely recommend it for people who want to learn more how to communicate under like high stress or high emotions, that kind of thing.
Okay. What's the name of the book?
Crucial Conversations.
I'll get it from you after. Okay, cool.
And it works for professional environments as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Good everywhere.
Yeah, de-escalating professional environments are much different. That I've learned has been very, very difficult. Oh, my goodness, because you're not family, right? So people say, "Oh, hey, we're family at work." Like, some people might believe that. Some people might go with that and have a good work environment. But some people be like, "Family? No, I work with you. We're coworkers, and once 5 o'clock hits, we're nobody."
Yeah.
And so I've learned you have to navigate how to, quote unquote, discipline or provide feedback in such a way where they don't get offended and quit. But you also have to do it differently with family. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice balancing act.
And not just that, each individual is different. Each individual has a different personality. You got to communicate to them in the way that they will most be able to receive it, most receptive.
Yeah, I learned a little bit about that while working at Hendrick Honda, because they would have you take a personality test, and based on your personality on your name tag, you would have a color.
Okay.
And so, like red is alpha male, right? You're like top dog. No matter what you do, you're always in charge. You assert yourself. So you kind of like with those type of people, and I learned how to talk to them. You have to be straightforward, like straight to the point. Don't dilly dally. Don't beat around the bush. Just get your point across, and in as little words as possible. That's all they care about. They just want to get stuff done and move on. And there's yellow, like more detailed oriented. Green's like more outgoing and just bubbly, kind of like me. Like you're kind of like just you like to talk. Blue, I forget what it is, but it's been years. But like it, but I forget what it's called. But it's a personality test. It's pretty cool, and they'll even teach you how to handle people who fall into different types of categories. And I think if anyone hasn't done that yet, you should. You should know how to talk with people. And honestly, it's a good reminder for me. I haven't done that. I forgot what blue even is.
There's Myers-Briggs. There's a site called 16, like number 16, personalities.com, and you can take a test there for free.
That's probably what it is. Yeah, it's very useful. I mean,
definitely.
20 minutes of your time, but now it'll help you learn about yourself. Right? I learned that actually I was right in between like analytical and goofball. Mm-hmm. So they actually were like, yeah, you could have technically been a yellow. I'm like, yeah, but I'm definitely a green. And so it's interesting. It kind of made me realize, yeah, I can get very technical. I can get into the nitty gritty of things, but I also like to have fun, probably more so. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's important people to recognize that, because if you don't know your own personality trait, how can you possibly work with someone else and adapt?
Right. A lot of conflict comes from like there's no evil intent or bad intent behind it. It's just misalignment of personalities, the way somebody said something, and so on. So, but then it escalates and becomes this huge thing when it doesn't have to be.
100%. And a lot of it, probably most, comes from tonality. Mm-hmm. People underestimate tonality. That's why I never recommend texting anyone like about serious things where you can be misconstrued. Like my number one thing that I learned with my wife is I never want to argue with her via text, or even like say anything that can be interpreted as an argument via text, because there's you interpret it as you interpret it. It's like, let's say you told someone, hey, thanks for doing XYZ. They're like, they think you could be being a jerk, like sarcastic about it. You're like, no, I was genuinely saying thank you.
Yeah.
Like you could say like, hey, thanks for leaving the toilet seat up. You might think she's yelling at you, but it's like, no, or he, whatever. It's like, no, I was genuinely being thankful. And it's like, I've seen videos of people kind of, misinterpreting each other's texts because you can't identify the tonality. But if you're talking, hey, turns out you're not being a jerk. Those words have different meanings.
Right.
Super important.
Definitely. One thing I was going to ask you in the beginning that I forgot. So you were born in Oregon.
Yeah.
But you're born to an immigrant family.
Yes, sir.
So what is it like growing up being a first-generation American?
I still have spank marks on my butt. No. Literally seeing the difference in discipline was like the biggest thing. Even back in the 90s, things already started changing. I think first grade is when that was the last year I think our school had paddles. Like literally we had the paddle boards. After that, it was all, go to the corner. And then after that, there are no bad problems. There are no bad things. It's just chaos. But growing up as an immigrant, it was very interesting because I saw the struggle, right? My parents fled the USSR in '89. They didn't leave peacefully, right? They weren't able to fly straight to the U.S. Packed their bags, went to Italy, filed for asylum, and they got it about 6 months later, came to the U.S. with virtually no money, knowing less than 10 words, and got taken in by an Amish family. Mm. So that was interesting. I remember them a little bit. 'Cause I was born a few years after, but over the years we visited them, kind of go back and say hi. And what I learned, though, was the amount of work that you can do is a lot more than people are willing to do to get to the next level. My dad would leave the house at 4 a.m. for a job that was paying like $3 an hour, come home, help mom with whatever, and then he would have evening jobs doing whatever he could until they had enough money saved up to create their own business with a foster care home. So they bought this house for next to nothing, run down, made additions to it, little by little made additions to where my mom had a full-time job taking care of elderly people in our home while raising 4 young kids. Mm-hmm. And when my dad then started to go into construction. So long story short, they were pulling like 100-hour weeks, technically. I remember 3 a.m. waking up, 97-year-old grandma is crying and she needs to go to the bathroom. And Mom wakes up and goes and helps her onto the toilet. And, seeing that, it was humbling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just thinking you got to do whatever it takes sometimes to get to where you want to be. And I think that helped me realize that this whole I think it's an American or Western dream of like, if you, love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's like, that's true, but you don't always start there. Sometimes you got to do what you don't want to do. And so I see that in my parents. I've seen that in all the immigrant families and, in our church. Like, you see people working crazy hours, running multiple businesses, but they made it and, they got what they wanted. Whereas what I learned a lot of times with Americans, like right now, we're pushing for 4-day work weeks. They want 34 hours to be the full time. People want to work less and less and less, but they want more out of society. And I'm just like, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, that's never been a thing. And people go, oh, well, screw you, Henry Ford, for introducing the 5-day work week. I'm like, you don't know your history, do you? Like, thank God for Henry Ford. Before then, you worked 24/7 to survive.
Yeah.
There were no set Monday to Fridays. That didn't happen. So, in fact, Henry kind of gave you the ability to complain about him, because if it wasn't for that work-life balance, who knows where we'd be today.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just, is teaching that you got to start somewhere, and you're going to have to hustle more than you probably ever want to.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Going to social area.
Oh, boy.
What is your social life like? Like, are you involved in any kind of social groups or community groups or that kind of thing?
We were for a while, kind of took a break. Lots of things happened. And once my dad passed away, it's like the cliche thing, get mad at God kind of thing. I didn't get mad at God, but I didn't feel as close. Mm-hmm. And so it was my own mistake, but it was bad timing. Something happened at church where I was no longer in my position of service. Amongst that, my dad passed away, and I was just like, you know what? I kind of just stopped all my helping, right? I was involved in church. I was with a junior high. I was helping, these 12 to 14-year-old kids trying to navigate life. And once I stopped doing that, I realized that overall my entire social construct changed. Everything I did changed. I don't spend as much time hanging out with people anymore. But it's also, I think, because of business. It's, we're all getting older. All my friends are, have kids and this and that. And so, like, getting together is difficult. It's not as easy as, hey, you want to come over? All right, cool. I'll see you in 10 minutes. It's now, like, we got to plan 6 days in advance, find babysitters and stuff like that. And so we don't really go out as much. I mean, thankfully, my wife's a homebody. If all we ever did was go home and just read a book or watch TV, she would love to work out and just relax. That's it, and just not go anywhere. She's fine with it. I do like going out places. I want to go and just experience new things, but I have no problem also just being at home and not really talking to other people. And I think it's important though. I feel people who, let's say you're married or have a significant other, and if you need to go somewhere constantly, it's kind of strange to me because, like, shouldn't you get a level of fulfillment from your spouse? As long as they're involved. But if they're not involved, like, I feel like it can lead to potential dangerous areas if you're not, if that's not your best friend, if that's not your person you go with everywhere. I could feel like it's a little weird.
But let's say, so you're an extrovert, your wife is an introvert, and she's happy being at home all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to come a time where you're like, I'm just so bored of sitting at home all the time. Let's go do something. And she's like, well, I don't want to go anywhere. Like, yeah. I like it here. It's fine.
That's happened a lot. Yeah. So actually, now that you said that, it brings it up. So a lot of what I do actually lately is I'll hang out with a couple of buddies and we'll go play pool. That's so
right.
So if my wife's like, I just want to stay home, do nothing, I'm tired. I'm like, would you be cool if I went with the boys? And she's like, she's like, I don't even have energy to talk to you, so do whatever you want. I'm like, fantastic. So
right, it's having that understanding. Like, I think a lot of maybe younger couples, some even older who don't understand personality types, are like, well, I'm like this. I'm okay with sitting at home doing nothing or whatever, staying at home all the time. I don't need to go out and see people or talk to people. So why are you? What's wrong with you that you have to go hang out with people? Like, you should be like me.
Yeah, no, that'd
Right?
be
Like,
weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
would
so
not-
like as
yeah.
long as people understand one another, it's like, okay, no, this person is extroverted. They get recharged by being around people. They need to be like in social circles and so on. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. I'm not like that, and it's okay for me to not be like that. I can come out or go out once in a while, but I don't have to go out as much. It's like having that common understanding goes a long, long way.
I think communication for everything that we discussed today is key, right? You have to set clear expectations. So, my wife knows, like, I'll be a homebody too, but, once a week or so, I'd love to hang out with my friends because we've been friends for, 15 years, and, we have a blast. We just talk. It's just talk, we just hang
Yeah.
out. And, but, it depends. Sometimes she wants to tag along, sometimes she doesn't. And like I said, it's communication, right? As long as, now if she's like, says, no, I don't want you to go, of course I'm not going to go. I can't, I blame society and like Hollywood for showing that, husband goes to the wife and, can I go golfing with the boys? She's like, sure. And then, it's like, there's a voiceover saying, I hope he doesn't. If he does, I'm gonna be so mad.
Oh.
But she said, yeah, sure, honey, no problem. And the guy's like, great. And he goes, and now she's mad. It's like, that's so stupid. Like, communicate. If you
Yeah.
really don't want him to go, say, I would love you to be home with me.
Yeah.
Just say those words. But but what's happening in society is kind of like, it's whether they're doing it intentionally or not, or teaching people or grooming people essentially to think that's okay. Like, that's the norm. A pissed off wife who doesn't really tell you what she really wants is normal. No, it's not.
Right.
It shouldn't have to be, at least. And
Yeah.
that's the crazy. That's why we actually we don't really watch much content online, like Hollywood stuff. Or at least if we do, when we see stupid stuff like that, we literally look at each other, we're like, that's stupid. And we're like, that's not real. It's just entertainment. Because I'm only 31. I'm still young, but I've seen it enough times where people who will act a certain way based off of social media, based off of Hollywood. They watch something, and then all of a sudden their opinion changes on life because someone said XYZ. And I think it's a little bit dangerous. You're kind of like gullible at that point.
Yeah. I guess in that case, like, people are looking to the wrong role models.
Yes.
Like people on TV or whatever, like not even the real people behind the characters, but
actors,
just
right.
just the characters.
Yeah, I mean,
What they're
even
playing, the roles they're
perfect
playing.
example, like, so maybe not the perfect, but I found out I don't really care about celebrities that much. Every now and then I'll read something, but so there was a clip on Facebook. I was just scrolling through Facebook Shorts, and Liam Neeson from the movie Taken. He's like, I'm gonna find you, I'm gonna kill you, and just aggressive psychopath killer who's like really, really good at it. You ever seen Taken? You have to. It's unreal how good it is. Basically, his daughter gets kidnapped, and now he's going after people who kidnapped her. The irony of it all is, like, in every movie I think he's ever been in, he's this like expert killer, perfect with he knows how to kill people with his hands, with guns, and he does it all. He's just like a madman, and I love him as an actor. Every film he's ever been in is fantastic, but in real life, he's a diehard against guns. Like super leftist, but in his movies, he's this like far alt-right gun-loving freak kind of thing. But like he plays a complete, and so I feel like sometimes people don't do well with what is reality. He portrays this character, but his real belief system is the opposite, and it's like I wish people would do a better job of just not listening to celebrities. Like, who are they? They're nobody to us. They shouldn't be. They don't care about you. At the end of the day, maybe some do, but they shouldn't be role models. Not celebrities. That's just weird.
Right. I think people just elevated them to that status of role models because they're like right in front of.
Yeah, because they like them. Kind of like, let's say the show Friends, right? That character that played, or the actor that played Chandler passed away. It's like you can't have. I don't think you can really have Hollywood be role models because most of them have major issues, right? Because they're held to these insanely impossible standards. And they fall in the wrong crowds, and oftentimes they're, if you're a drug addict or an alcoholic or whatever, a sex addict, whatever kind of addict, like, do you really want to have that person be your role model? Like, yeah, you can enjoy their content, but looking up to them is really strange because we don't know we only know what they allow us to see. Who knows what they do behind closed doors? I would much rather, if I were to have a role model, it's going to be someone who I'm able to look into their personal life, right? If I can somehow catch a glimpse, whether it's through family members or showing up to the house or having a chat, it's like understanding someone versus looking at their highlight reel and, ooh,
Right.
I'm inspired. I want to be like that. It's like, it's fake.
Yeah.
And it's a little dangerous, I think, to me.
Yeah. what does faith, what role does faith play in your life?
All of it. I think, I mean, you know, the golden rule, right, of Christianity is, and I think in most religions anyway, if you're going to look at it from a religious perspective, it's treat people right. Do unto others as you would want them to do to you. You know, if I'm going to talk to you, whether it's you, my wife, my brothers, my mom, my cousins, my friends, my customers, whoever it is, I want to talk to them, treat them as if the tables were turned, right? If I broke my phone and went into a repair shop, I wouldn't want to be taken advantage of. So I'm not going to take advantage of people. You know, I like to look at it from the perspective of, if I were to send my mom somewhere, how would I want her to be treated? That's how I want to treat people. And so that's, I think, our entire philosophy in life in general for me and my wife is business or personal. We try to be like Jesus as much as we can. We fail, but, you know, it's the intention. You have to be intentional. And I think for me, like this past week, intentionality has been the theme for some reason. So I feel like God's trying to tell me something, but I've had numerous conversations about intentionality. And I think you have to have faith in something. Because if you don't have faith in God or some sort of belief system, you know, where your morals come from, right? I've heard this a lot. It's like, who can tell you what good morals are? What's a good moral thing? Right. I mean, I listen a lot right now to, there's a YouTube channel called Abolitionist Rising, and the guy named Kurt Russell, who basically is an artist, makes beautiful posters says, you know, I'm a baby, don't kill me, killing me is murder. He's an abolitionist of abortion. And so he goes to college campuses, holds the signs, and gets into crazy arguments with people, but he never loses his cool. He exposes the fact that without a faith in, whether it's Christianity or even other religions, without that, you have there is no general consensus on what's good, what's bad. The world comes up, you know, whatever feels right that day is right. And so there's no real moral compass, which is kind of terrifying. Because I've heard hundreds of people be like, if the baby's due that day, I don't care. If it's not out of the womb yet, then it's not a child, we can kill it. Like, but then on the opposite spectrum, you have people who believe 12 weeks is the max, but none of them are Christian. Maybe both are atheists, but like the way they view life, the way they view really any topic is all over the place. Some people think that stealing is perfectly fine if it's from a rich person. If it's not, if he's poor, don't steal. It's just weird societal standards. So for us, faith, number one, I mean, I believe that God saved me. I believe that I'm a very imperfect person. I have made more mistakes than I would ever want to make. But I get my redemption through him. And so if what he has asked me to do is to follow him and be like him, why not? It's not like he did anything bad. That's the funny part about it. People when they try to say X, Y, Z about it, I'm like, well, what did Jesus do that you didn't like? He said, be like me. What part of his entire, you know, the entire recorded history of him, what was bad? You know, he taught to love, forgive. You know, you got hit, someone stole something, don't go after them. Don't shoot them, right? Don't kill them. Like, someone hit you, turn the other cheek. Like, everything he taught was humble yourself, don't think so much of yourself, love other people, treat them right, be nice, be kind, take people in. It's like, what about that is bad?
Yeah.
But people will get hung up on, well, he said, if I don't do that, I'm going to go to hell. Like, so, but what's bad about doing good things? He wants you to do good things. He wants you to love and help people and nurture and be selfless. Like, what? You know, it's almost like people are trying to make it like Jesus is a bad person for saying, if you're not going to do good things, or rather follow me, then yes, you will go to heaven or hell. They're like, well, he should not threaten us. Well, I mean, who are you to say that, you know? But yeah, overall, for us, faith is the cornerstone of everything we do.
Yeah. I just had a thought about, there's a verse that talks about where sin abides, grace abounds, either one, even more. So I was just thinking, like, in business, you know, we were talking about making mistakes. We want to make mistakes so we can, like, learn from it and move on. It's almost like, you know, when you do sin, you get that grace and you learn from it and so on. But I think the intent behind it, there's like sin that's intentional and then there's sin that's like unintentional. So I think that probably matters a lot.
Yeah. And even I mean, when you talk about intention, you know, even the intent behind doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. Some people, you do quote unquote the right thing out of fear of being sent to hell. And it's like, well, that's not right either. It's written very clearly that we love because he first loved us. We're supposed to love because he loved us. That's just if you're a child of God, you have been forgiven. He has given you everything and everything you'll ever need. Anything and everything. Forever. And all he wants for an exchange is believe in me. Like that's the primary thing, believe. And then the next step is stop doing bad things. But believe in him. First and foremost, believe. And that's really it. And I think, sometimes Christian or non-Christian, I think people overcomplicate so much stuff. Like, ooh, I got to do good deeds. No, you don't. It's good to do them. Don't not saying don't do them, but you can't buy your way into heaven. You can't buy your salvation. Jesus very clearly said, there's going to be people who did all these signs and wonders and did all these things, and they were fantastic Christians, right? Fantastic followers. They did all these things and cast out demons in Jesus' name, and then Jesus is going to go, I never knew you. But what does that mean? It means, I'm a little rusty, but what it means to me is like, what you do is that's not going to determine your salvation. As far as like good deeds, hey, I did it, well now I'm good. It's it's really come down to a belief system, believing in Jesus, and being intentional with your life. Right, your life is His, and you are called in some way, shape, or form. We're all called to glorify Him. We're all called to bring people to Him. And when people just say, "Oh, I just gotta be nice," like no, but you can be selfless. You have to be. Your intent has to be selfless. You can't just do it because, well, I'm going to do this so that way I can go to heaven. Like that's the wrong mindset. You need to do it because you owe him that and you love him and he's given you everything. And without him, you have nothing. And maybe that's not the best explanation of it, but I think you can't go into it with like a selfless understanding or selfish desire in salvation. Like I've met some people in my life who became Christian because they were terrified of not, going to heaven. And so like super, super religious, and like every word that came out of their mouth is like practically a Bible verse. And a short while later they fall hard because the reason behind them doing what they were doing wasn't the right one. Mm-hmm. They were just scared of going to hell versus, hey, I'm gonna love people because God wants me to love them, and I'm loved, and I'm good, I'm saved, like fantastic, I'm happy about that. I should be ecstatic. I feel like Christians should be the happiest people on planet Earth because we have it. Like we're good. And we may not feel good. Things might suck in the moment. It might be a pretty bad moment. But eternally, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like you should be happy. Like you should be, or at least
joyful.
Content. Yeah, you should be joyful. You should be content. Like you should just, yes, maybe you didn't get that raise. Maybe you lost your job. Maybe your business failed. Maybe, your kids said, I hate you. Like, it'll get better. And even if it doesn't, this isn't our end goal. This isn't the end. This is the beginning. This is like tryouts, basically.
The practice round.
Yeah, essentially, kind of, yeah.
Yeah. What about your personal life in terms of like physical, like exercise or food or that kind of stuff? Like, what is that like?
I can't lie because my wife's going to call me out, and so will all my friends. I work out all the time. No, I used to be pretty religious with working out, and I think what happened was as soon as I got my own business, I became, it's the wrong thing, but I became tired. And so you're supposed to do is you're supposed to work out because your body otherwise start atrophying. You need to get your muscles moving, your blood pumping. You need to sweat. You need to get your heart rate up. But, for so many years, I would just be so tired from the shop and working, and I just, like, come home, like, I don't want to work out. And where I wouldn't want to wake up early enough to work out, so I would, like, sporadically work out every now and then. But it's been a while. But I know I should. Mm-hmm. And so, we actually got a gym in our garage, and I used it, like, 10 times, and I stopped. Terrible. But what, as far as diet goes, though, that's something that we've been much more intentional about. So several years ago, my wife and I have all but cut out sugar in our lives. Maybe not 100%, not 100 for sure, but as much as we can, because what happened was I've always had a level of abdominal pain. I've had stomach pains since I was a kid. And it recently got worse a few years back, to the point where I was like, is it something I'm eating? So a buddy of mine said, you should try an elimination diet if it's something diet related. I went to doctors, every test in the world, you're healthy. you're fine. And I'm like, well, I'm not. It hurts a lot. And so a friend of mine said, you should try an elimination diet and just eat beef. He's like, virtually no one ever has any allergies to beef. Just eat beef, add a little salt, drink water. That's it. Nothing else. And I was like, sounds weird, but you know what? It makes sense. Because I could be eating some sort of fruit, vegetable, anything could be triggering this. It could be even meat itself. So I did that. I did beef only for a few weeks. 2 or 3 weeks. And the first few days were... It's a good weight loss program.
Oh, yeah.
And but it's like your body's just like, ooh, toxins everywhere. And I'm not receiving new toxins, so now I have the ability to get rid of old toxins. I'm not fighting battles at both fronts. Mm-hmm. And so I started to feel a lot better. I started to sleep better, feeling more energized. It makes sense. And it's not just because I gave up vegetables or fruits, I only ate meat. It's because of all the processed things. But then I, just a little by little, incorporated stuff back into my diet. But long story short, we try to eat as minimally processed foods as possible. For instance, 2 days ago, we actually finally received half a cow. So I have 225 pounds in my freezer of beef. But it ended up being a lot cheaper than grocery stores.
Is that going to be like for a year or two?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so what we do is, we try to not buy packaged foods as much as we can. Mm-hmm. Every now and then, yeah, we'll indulge. But, I think the issue has become with society is from childhood, even pre-birth, people are eating packaged foods, right? Mom's eating who the heck knows what, drinking who the heck knows what, all types of sugars and dyes and chemicals and natural flavors, which can legally include over 100 chemicals that they don't have to legally disclose. Yeah. So like once I started learning that, I'm like, wait a second, this is organic, but then it says includes natural flavors. It could have 170 or 154 unorganic chemicals. It's like, what do they do? I don't know. What are they? I don't know. Do I really want to find out? No. And so oftentimes we see, during even pregnancy, the children are we've already seen babies become diabetic before they were born because of the foods and drinks that mom's consuming. And so we saw that. We're like, yeah, we're not doing that. I don't want to give our kids diabetes before they're even born. We have the fattest kids on planet Earth at the youngest age of all time. And you see parents say, oh, McDonald's, sure, and go and get chicken nuggets and a burger and fries and a Coke. And I'm like, they just consumed more everything that they should have for the entire day in one meal. Yeah. Your body cannot process that well. And so we're just intentional with drinking water. Like that, coffee. You ask if I want sugar. It's hard for me to say no. Like, I want sugar. It's an addiction. So no, just, some coffee and creamer. But that helps a lot. It gives you clarity. Because you eat a lot of sugary sweets, you drink a lot of sodas. In fact, actually, I learned that when I was at Cookout, 16 years old. I worked at Cookout. We would get free drinks. So, on a hot day, I would just iced tea and sweet tea. Boom, boom, boom. Until I saw how they made it. I didn't make it. For every gallon of water, it'd be a pound of sugar. Wow. And it's like a slushy. It is disgusting. But I was drinking. It's delicious. And I realized that every cup, I was already 3xing my daily consumption of sugar. And so I started to feel a bit bad. Stopped drinking it. Had the worst withdrawal. 2 days of it felt like the world's worst headache. Just crazy. And I realized, wow, yeah, straight from that sugar, because I was consuming so much of it. So I was like, yeah, you know what? We're gonna moderate that, and it helps mentally, physically, obviously. And I don't know if you ever heard of Jordan Peterson talking about his own health, how he's gotten better. But I think what's important for people to understand, though, is it's not one size fits all. A carnivore diet or low carb diet isn't for everybody, right? Some people don't do well with meat. Some people need more veggies and fruits. But I think the key is whether it's vegetables, whether it's fruit, whether it's meat, it's all about eliminating as much processed foods as possible. If you just eat veggies and fruit and meat, but don't eat boxed foods, you're going to feel a lot better.
Yeah.
For sure.
So you and I talked about crypto way back and stuff. Yeah. What's your view on it now, and where's that part going in this world?
I haven't really paid attention as much lately, just because we were in the bear market, but all the groups I'm in are like, hey, it's bull market, which we've seen it. Bitcoin has doubled this year, right? It went down to a low of 16,000 or whatever. It's well over 30. You have, it's kind of beyond me. I didn't do too much research, but there's official, like real bankers are actually taking it seriously. There's ETFs being filed. There's all kinds of banks that are actually investing a ton of money into crypto, Bitcoin specifically. And then there's also the halving that's coming up next year. So basically, it's going to be harder to mine Bitcoin, so Bitcoin will become more valuable. With that being said, though, it's like, the dream is it becomes this currency that, you can use. I don't know if it's actually going to happen. Will it not? I don't know. Bitcoin could very well become $1 million a coin. It could very well go down to $1. I think it's kind of one of those things where it will go up before it goes down. But not financial advice, so don't listen to me.
No, just
don't buy crypto because of me. But if you're gonna buy it from someone else.
Yeah.
But I have a little bit. I have about half a Bitcoin maybe. I started mining. I think I told you about some miners, and so they're just quietly mining Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Took a while to accumulate it, but not really profitable. Once Bitcoin goes up like another 10,000, it'll have been worth it. But otherwise, I could have been just bought Bitcoin and left it alone. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of people out there saying it's going to blow up again. It's going to be crazier than ever. I hope it does.
Yeah.
But I've kind of been out of the loop, right?
Been busy with other stuff, right?
Yeah. I think it's how it is. Like when there was a bull market, when Bitcoin hit all-time high, everyone was buying. But when it was low, they weren't. Same thing here. Bear market happened. Everyone kind of forgot about it because it's low. Now that it doubled this year, everyone's talking about it. Everyone's buying. I'm like, dude, you bought 8 months too late, 10 months too late. You should have bought it earlier. Yeah. It's kind of like stocks. Oh my gosh, the stock went up. There's all these good news coming out of this company. I'm going to buy it. It's like, dude, way too late. You should be selling at this point. But those are things you learn. That's the thing.
Right.
I think you kind of, you can expedite that learning process by, again, talking to people in whichever field you want to grow in, right? If you want to learn about crypto, join crypto Discord groups, Facebook groups, whatever. If you want to learn about stocks, there's probably 1,000 groups out there on Facebook, Discord, Reddit, whatever part of the internet you want to go on. There's people that will talk about it, and you got to take it with a grain of salt because not everyone's honest, not everyone knows everything. But you can. It's kind of like in school when you're writing a paper. They say, hey, you got to give me 6 different sources, right?
Right.
I think people don't do that anymore. People will read a headline. They'll read the first 4 words in a headline and make a decision. Like, this person's that. Like, well, read the whole thing and then read another article and then another one. And, maybe then you'll find the truth, or at least a version of the truth.
Yeah, like triangulate the information.
Yeah, because some people are like, they only read CNN or only read Fox News. I'm like, you're both wrong. You should have a balanced view of life. Because just because you're a Democrat or just because you're a Republican doesn't mean you're right or wrong in everything. There's give and take that has to happen. And I think people are, especially with social media, you're in a bubble, right? The algorithm keeps you in your bubble. And I think a lot of people don't even know that. They think whatever they see is what the world believes because that's all they see. So they think everyone else sees the same feed. It's like, no, it's catered to what you like, what you were scrolling at, what you stopped at. You didn't have to tap it, you just stop. And the algorithm's like, this person likes this. We're going to keep on feeding them this. And so you're in a bubble.
Yeah.
And you have to break out of that bubble.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great chatting with you. What do you have any kind of like announcements or something you want to share?
I mean, man, there are a few things, but I don't want to be that guy. Like, come spend money with me. But one of the best things that we have as a company. So, like I said, we service T-Mobile insurance claims. So if you have T-Mobile insurance, we can probably help you save money on your deductible. But more importantly, is if you don't have insurance because you don't want to pay $15 to $20 a month for a phone, we actually do offer it for less than half what the carriers do it for, and it's all operated through an app. You don't have to. There's no call center to call, so we can actually facilitate the claim for you. So instead of paying $300, $400, $500 fixing the newest phones, you would pay $29, and it's as little as $5 a month. There's no contract. We even have a plan that covers a phone and every other electronic in your home for $15. So like TVs, microphones, cameras, whatever you can think of, it'll cover everything. There's a variety of things that we offer, and so the goal is, since we cut out the middleman, we're able to offer for a lot less while maintaining the highest level of quality. Because, I mean, right now, any phone you buy, it doesn't matter who the manufacturer is or computer, it's extremely expensive. And the parts are more expensive than ever. I think the cheapest one I've seen is like in the $300 range. If you get a $5 protection plan, you break it once in 3.5 years, it still pays for itself. Most people, on average, break a device usually more than once a year, as far as like if you were to round it out. Mm-hmm. So some people might be watching and they're paying Verizon $18 a month. You could be paying $5. You know, and the best part is you're supporting local, and but you're also saving a ton of money, and it's an easier process.
Yeah,
that's been like the biggest thing since I started this company. Like, I've wanted this. This has been like a dream to have something like this where I can genuinely save people money, but not by sacrificing quality, not by sacrificing anything. It's just like it's a good program, and so you know it took years, but we got it, and it's exciting. So
okay, good. And you'll send me some links. I'll put them down in the description.
Yeah. So the company is CPR Cell Phone Repair. I'm based out of Indian Trail, and we're not far from Charlotte. We were like 2 feet away, so. It's technically Charlotte, right? That's the funny part, because Charlotte has grown so fast, where what used to be all these trees that separated the cities is just like construction. It's as if it's the same city now. Yeah. So we're technically, you know, but.
Or if you're in Asheville.
Yeah, if you're in Asheville, stop on by. We've got a great team to help you guys out. But Jerry, I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you inviting me. It's fun. Yeah. It's always it's nice to just chat. We haven't spoken in years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So I'm sure we'll do this again, and that time it'll be more kind of topic rather than just your life.
Yeah, but. I like it because there's so much to talk about, and I feel like, you know, that's one of the joys in life, right? Is having discourse, and sometimes they're not going to agree, and it's like, hey, that's cool, but you know, today was kind of like a lot of agreement, but maybe we'll find something we're going to butt heads on, and that'll make it entertaining. Yeah. Maybe not.
Definitely.
We'll see.
I'm sure there's all kinds of views we can talk about. Again, like my first interview with the first guest, like when they're first on the show, is just to get the background of who they are, where they came from, and that kind of thing. So there's not going to be too much disagreement because it's just about
just kind of get to know you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it makes sense. It's just like, again, it's like we were talking about today and all these things. Like you gotta kind of know who you're dealing with in order to move on in the conversation, right? Whether it's personal, business. If you don't ask questions, how can you possibly, you know, how do you know what you don't know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again. Thank you so much for coming on here, and you know, looking forward to the next one.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.